You're listening to Well, I Laughed, Part 1 of Horsing Around, Dick of All Trades.
I'm so excited to record tonight in general.
I'm so tired, and I'll tell you why in a moment.
Were you almost canceled today?
Was I almost canceled?
Yeah, were you almost canceled today?
Oh, no.
Oh, that's what I thought you meant by almost had a
Didn't even have
moment.
the chance to think
Oof, I'm
about cancel.
Well, the good news is you really got to listen today. And today's theme is horsing around.
And that's my favorite kind of theme.
I kind of really think it is going to be. Do we need him to press the button?
No, it's recording.
Oh, is it? Fine. Bye, Casey.
Hello, friends.
Hi.
Casey's gone. Mom's gone, so we can talk now. Just the girls.
We need to share that moment right away, by the way. You know the moment I'm talking about.
I am so not here right now. You're
Okay.
going to need to
Let me
be
take
really
over for a second.
clear.
Mama. So on Maya's bachelorette trip, so fun. There's like 12, 13 of us, right? So there's like several different hotel rooms. And I'm in a hotel room with many of our fan favorites from the Well I Laughed multiverse. Me, Lydia, Hayden, and Danny are all in the same room. And Danny arrives on the second day, not the first day, which is fine. But that means when Danny arrives on the second day, and then as we're all getting ready for bed that evening, Hayden, Lydia, and I have already had like an evening together. So we're like flossing and brushing our teeth and like putting on pajamas and stuff, and we're gossiping. And Danny's like, "Okay, everyone, well, good night," and like starts to like pull the covers up, and we're like, "Danny,
No, you got a girl with
we're
us.
girling right now." And he
Yeah.
goes, What does that even mean?"
Oh, Danny, you're the straightest gay man I've ever met.
And I was like, Danny, like, this is the moment where we all kind of like get ready and like let our proverbial hair down.
Yeah.
And like, we just kind of like gossip and girl. Like, not about the other people on the trip or anything.
Yeah.
But it was like, oh my gosh, have I shown you guys this person on Bumble, right? Or guess
did you
what?
see that waiter?
Right, exactly. Right. You just girl. Like, let's talk about that 24-hour bakery for a second, right? Like, you just girl for a little bit. And Danny was like, oh, okay. And so then, because he's a quick learner, he like immediately sits up and starts thinking, okay, what do I have to girl about? And
I
was
love
like,
how
yes.
Danny thinks too, because he like if you ever had to question like, hey, what is that guy doing? It's like the stock photo image for thinking.
He is full of thoughts, which means he is generally very thoughtful.
Yeah.
I said generally.
Yes, generally.
We love all of our friends to death. But yes. So it was just a great time. And then towards the end of that evening, now that Danny was full on like girling with us, I was like, I think that's like one of the fun parts about being a queer man. Like you get access to these feminine spaces a lot more. And Danny was like, I agree with you. And I was like, got him.
We'll get
He's
to you
in.
yet. God, that's so funny.
So it's been good. You have had quite a busy day though.
I have.
Just roll me through it. What happened today?
First of all, if you're listening on the YouTube, before you ask in the comments the things that Grant and I are wearing, we have little lavalier mics on. I'm doing videography for a wedding, and I need to test these mics because I have to record vows. And for some reason, I get the impression that like maybe if I fail to record the actual vows, they might not be happy with that.
Oh.
So I'm just making sure that these connect to the camera. So that's that. Today was great. Started out on a really happy, great note when I woke up at like 7:30, and I was just like, I didn't have any morning meetings. I wasn't like rushing to like start work or anything. So around like 8 or something, I'm like laying in bed checking the social media and everything, and I'm lying facing the wall away from the door, and just suddenly something hits me in the face and I'm like, what? And Casey has thrown his shirt at me. And that's fine. That's like, we throw stuff at each other all the time, and it's like cute and flirty and whatever. But I had been awake for not that long. And Grant, what kind of a person am I in the morning?
Highly agreeable.
Yep, that was sarcastic. You get it. And so,
in a weird way, more full of anxiety than as the day progresses. Like, I don't know what night is like for you, but I assume it's
super
full of terrors.
I mean, it's pretty chill because I'm usually on some things. But anyway, I like jump out of my skin and like curse. And Casey goes, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry. I thought that would be like a cute little thing." And I was,
because you're like actively on your phone.
Yeah.
Like you're awake.
I was awake. I just like he crept up on his little kitty cat feet and I didn't hear him. And then something hit me in the face and I was like, great. That's really great. And so I was super happy with him all morning, and not really, like he left for work, so I maybe had like 20 minutes where he was like, "I love you," and I was like, okay.
He was like, everything I've done was love language so far.
Anyway, I had signed up for a solid core class at 4:15 with Maddie.
Okay.
Because I was supposed to do one with her on Monday,
Right.
and we had actually just signed up for the wrong classes. So both of us
solid core
collectively,
alone.
got to solid core, and we're like, "Well, where's Maddie? Well, where's Maya?" And then the next day, we were like, "We signed up for the wrong classes."
Good.
I signed up for the wrong class. It's fine. Anyway, so
Maddie's our contestant from last week's
Yeah.
Lonely Listener.
Yeah, right
So
in.
if this is still an
I
attractive
realized
option for you.
I don't think we specified. I think she is mostly straight. So
good as
we
well.
should.
Yeah.
Most of our listeners are female.
Such a good point. Yeah. Completely forgot about that.
Yeah, that should have been specified. Anyway, Casey and I feel like I've mentioned this, are in the process of buying a house, which also means we're in the process of buying a lot of furniture. So Casey's texting me about some of the furniture he's looking at buying, and specifically we're looking at the couches. And we're buying Lovesac couches. First of all, Lovesac is the brand that made the big like beanbag chairs.
Giant love sacks, yeah.
Exactly. They now make really great sectionals. They call them sectionals. Just let that sit in.
I mean, I love it. They're just like, boom, theme.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, that's disgusting. Anyway.
So you guys got a big old sectional?
Yeah, we got 3 big old sectionals.
Sectionals. That's a lot of sectionals. A lot of love sacks going on in
Yeah,
there.
a lot of love sacks.
Listen,
Love sack sectional is technically what you would call them.
But Irving, girl.
Yeah, exactly.
Everyone, you know what a love sack is because there was one at that creepy guy's apartment you went to in college. That was a love sack.
If you ever see a beanbag chair that's like 3 feet tall, and what your first instinct is to run and jump into it, that's probably a love sack.
That's a love sack. Yeah.
So he found out from ordering online that like if you go into the store, you can like talk through and maybe get some more customizations,
Sure.
then there's usually a higher discount, and it was mostly true. So we went in.
I'm sure they're actual
Yeah.
pieces of furniture with like defined edges, but I'm just imagining huge like lima beans.
You've
You
been
can
to
kinda
Kelsey and
sit in.
Edgar's, right?
Yeah, of course,
That white couch is a love sack.
Oh, that white couch is so comfortable and a great length on the legs.
And they
too.
are, and so
Yeah.
you can actually adjust how deep it is by like swapping the cushions. It's all
Nice.
fully like customizable. It's really great. They have little like basically Lego building blocks in the store, so you can like build what you want your couch. It's crazy. But you can also like, what I really like about it is you can take off the covers, wash them, but you can also buy new covers. So if you ever want like a different couch,
You can change the color.
Amazing.
So you woke up, had anxiety, did F45 with Maddie.
Nope.
and then-
We haven't even gotten to that yet.
Wait, hold on. So when did you guys go buy furniture?
So we did that in the afternoon.
Oh, okay.
Because Casey was like, "Do you want to go at like 4?" And I was like, "I have a solid core class, and at this point, I can't cancel it because then I'll lose the credit."
I can't cancel that again.
I can't cancel that again. And so he was like, "Well, can we go at like 2:45? We'll be back in time for your solid core class." And I was like, "Yeah, I can like catch up on work later, and like I don't have any meetings this afternoon, so that's fine." And so we went, and that was cool. Driving through Denver around 3 to 4. A nightmare, actually, if you didn't know. So anyway, we leave Cherry Creek Mall at like 3:45, and the class starts at 4:15. Yeah. Anyway,
was it not enough time?
no, it would have been enough time. We started driving back, and we literally got like 2 blocks away, and then like all of the intersections were like at a dead stop, and like the ETA on the like GPS screen says like 413, but we're like literally we're
just dead stuck.
stopped.
Right.
And Casey just goes, "I think you could like get out and run."
Right. I think you got to run it.
Yeah, and
rom-com style.
And I was like, "But I don't think I want
to."
Yeah. But if I don't show up, I lose the credit, and Maddie's there waiting for
Right.
me. Which I had warned her, like when we left Cherry Creek, I was like, "Hey, I'm gonna run in like
cutting it.
right as it's starting," so she knew. But anyway, so yeah, I got out, I was wearing my chacos, holding my water bottle and my sweat towel, and I just ran, like sprinted faster than I have probably in months.
But that's such a
like,
common sight in Denver. Oh, look at that person running on their way to a fitness class.
I'm pretty sure I almost got hit by a car, but we won't.
That's also a pretty common sight in Denver.
I kind of just like stopped thinking about it after a while.
That's a classic city experience you just had in this city.
Because there was like an intersection blocked, and I was like, if no one's moving, I'm going. And then someone tried to turn, and I was like, I'm going. Like...
It means, so you know from Fleabag, season 2, it means Maddie is your older sister.
Yeah.
She's the only one you'd run through an airport for.
It's true.
Yeah, I know.
It's
I love that line.
really true. That is really cute.
Thank you.
But
Thank
anyway,
you.
I got in, I like made it in at like 4:16 or something like that. As I'm like running the last like 200 feet, I see another girl coming up, and we both lock eyes, and we're like, oh, thank God, they have to let us in if there's two of us. And so
I don't know if that's how solid core works, but okay.
they like lock the door. There's only like the trainer.
So no one can get out either?
No, they lock the door from the outside. You have to have like a code to get in, and so luckily I have the code, so we got in, and the class was full, so there's only 2 open like spots for us, and so we go to those 2 spots,
right.
And class starts, and I'm like, you know,
Which is
like
how you want to be at
breathing.
the start of a solid core class.
And then usually at the start of these solid core classes, the trainer will do something to like get your heart rate up, which in a lot of times happens to be like plank up downs or like army crawls. She started that army crawl like 2 minutes into class, and I just sat up and like retied my hair. I was like, girl, no. No, I'm not doing this. And Allie, the coach, locked eyes with me, and I think she was like, I'm sorry, you like rushed in here and you're not even gonna like take this seriously. And I was like, I'll be back. Like, let me chug half of my water bottle.
I will win this solid core if that's what you're challenging of me.
Oh my God, absolutely. It's also hamstring day. Maddie and I agreed, we just need to stop going on hamstring day. There is no need for that amount of pain.
Kind of love how much of a this is Sparta mindset and environment the solid core class develops.
It really is. I always forget how masochistic the movements are for hamstrings. There's something called the reverse hamstring curl. They do this in F45 too, where you essentially lay on your back, and either like if you're on the reformer, you have like a rolling thing so you're able to move. But you know what a glute bridge is?
Sure.
You go up into a glute bridge and then just move your feet.
I have no idea what a glute bridge is. I just assume it's like you kind of like thrust your whole body in the air.
Well, okay, so you lay down and then you like pick your feet up so that they're close to your butt, right? So you're like kind of laying down and your knees are up like that.
So it's flat and then a mountain.
Yeah,
it's how you represent Colorado.
And then a glute bridge, you just like
just shoot your hips straight up in the air.
So you're like a triangle.
Hot again.
Yeah. Anyway, you go into that position, right? And then you shift your legs out like that and back in. Because
so you're holding yourself up and doing like a little can at the same time?
Yeah, it hurts like a bitch. So that was one of the movements. And at that point, that was at the end. And at that point, I was like, do I just leave? Like, I don't want to be here anymore. You know, but there's
the last mile of every hike. Yeah. Oh my God, why did I do this?
There's like 2 minutes left of class. I'm like, if I walk out right now, that's like the most embarrassing thing that's going to happen to me.
Right. And then you have also not talked to Maddie for a single second.
Also, yeah, well, my reformer wasn't even next to her because the instructor had put someone next to Maddie on the only reformer that I could have been on next to. Anyway, so me and Maddie weren't even next to each other. It's fine. The other move that she makes us do for hamstrings is you like sit on your knees and you put your like feet under the strap so it kind of holds them down, and you just like lean forward and like go back up. That's insane. That's insane behavior.
I'm glad you can recognize it. That's insane. Everyone else who like just got like physical pain hearing Maya talk about that. Yeah, same, 100%. Us normal humans aren't doing that kind of stuff.
The rest of the stuff is fine. Abs I can deal with. Obliques I hate, but we do it. Hamstrings are... Why?
Can I just cut to me across town in my beautiful little cast iron grilling up some soy rizo and some black bean refried beans to put in my little tomato basil tortilla, and I have like a homemade salsa in my...
Anyway, so I came home. I had to walk home from that class. Maddie walked with me, which was great. We got a girl a little on the walk home. And then Casey and I had a little talk about some furniture stuff and then went on a walk. And then when we got back from the walk, Grant was here.
Ta-da!
So that's my day.
Not late. The one time ever she doesn't want me to be on time.
Because Grant texted, and I quote, "I'm planning on being there before 7." And so That's fine. But on the walk, I then tried to check your location, and I guess it didn't update quite enough because we were like almost back.
Right.
And it said you were still like on 6.
Because you got me text that I was on my way.
Yeah, yeah.
But sometimes the commute can be like 50 minutes, and sometimes it's like 15.
Exactly, with with traffic and everything. And so the same traffic that like
Caught you.
made me run.
Totally
for some
clear.
reason.
Actually, so easy to get downtown today. Lovely day.
Literally insane. But it showed that he was still like quite a ways away, and so I was like, that's fine. And then we walk into like our little neighborhood, and Grant's like waving with his Stanley out in front of our door, and I'm like, well,
I'm just trying to drink more water. It's hot right now.
It's like, okay, well, guess we're doing this right now.
But today's my episode, Mama. You just get to sit and listen and guffaw.
I did have another story. Oh, this is the other story I had to tell you. There was a few episodes ago, I told you about a toy that Monet was obsessed with.
Pause for 10 seconds.
Yeah.
We saw each other 32 hours ago.
I know, and I forgot about this
love
story.
this.
Yeah.
Yes, no, the toe that she's, like she'll growl if Bowser.
Yeah, she like
100%.
has it in her mouth all the time. So I messaged the people that were at Pride that gave out those toys
nice.
because it has their logo on it. So I just like found them on Instagram and messaged them, and I was like, "Hey, my dog loves this toy, and she's inevitably going to destroy it.
Right.
So like, can I come and get a new one, or do you like have them somewhere that I can like buy them?" And I sent a video of Mo with the toy with it because they're vets, you know, they like that. I think anyway. They responded and they were like, "So that's super funny. That is a cat toy." With catnip in it.
Your dog's a drug fiend.
And they were like, it won't hurt her. They're like, she's not the first dog. We'll absolutely set aside a toy for you. But I was like, of course my dog would just be like high on catnip, which I know isn't how that works.
No
but like
wonder
beside
she
the
was
fact.
so protective.
Yeah, she was obsessed with it. And now I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, cool, thanks.
When you started off that story and you were like, first off, that's a cat toy, I was so ready to be like the mom in the McDonald's drive-thru to be like, there are no boy toys and girl toys. But the fact that it's also laced with drugs.
It literally has catnip inside of it.
So
Yep.
funny. Listen.
Hilarious.
My relation to that.
Yeah.
2 decades ago. Oh God, maybe more. Sorry, remembering I'm not in my 20s anymore.
That's hard.
It is, and you'll know about it in. I'm not going to say the date because I'm kind. 5 years.
4.
Are you 26 now? I thought you just turned 25.
No, Casey's a year younger. Casey just turned 25.
It is creeping up on you. I'm kidding.
Wow.
So when I was younger, Atlantis, the movie Atlantis had just came out, you know, like the animated one.
Yeah.
McDonald's did like the toy promotion as they always did. And one of the things you could get was like a necklace that had like the little crystal at the bottom of it. And it was definitely technically one of the girl toys, but I was so desperate to get one.
it.
And shout out Teresa, my mom, who asked at like every McDonald's that we went through, and they were always sold out. I never got one of those little necklaces ever. I know. I don't even think at the time it was an obsession with accessories. I think I just wanted like the crystal, which I mean, should have known how earthy I was going to become years later in life, that I was like obsessed with this crystal. But yeah, never got a chance to get it. And also, my family did not go through McDonald's a lot. Like my family was the epitome of there are McDonald's at home, which is leftovers.
Same. My family was like, well, we have stuff at home, but my family growing up was an ingredient household, so that's why I'm so snacky now.
So just a handful of chocolate chips every day of your life.
Not even, no.
There are worse things out there.
Yeah, we didn't have chocolate chips because my mom was scared of sugar, I think.
Oh.
So.
Oh, let's get you a home.
I'm working on it, actually.
You really are.
Yeah.
You're going to put it all together.
I know.
So my day, very different. Shared that already a little bit. Did a lot of today was dedicated to pulling the story together. This morning, I was like, okay, let's start like really kind of pulling all these sources together that I had opened on my phone. And I hadn't realized how many I had collected at the time. 18. I had 18 websites put together. And then in doing all that, found a podcast too. But it was a great time. But listen, a couple episodes ago, I shared I've gotten really into bird watching. I have a new thing to add to that list.
Oh, no.
I have gotten really into, like the last week, but I can feel it sticking around, at least for
Shaving
the
your
summer. No, I've been doing that for years. Actually, like 6, 7
really?
years. Yeah, 6, 7 years. 25 is when I went bald.
I thought it was natural. Sorry.
I mean, a lot of it is. No, I've gotten really into pickling. I've been making
that
my
does
own.
make sense.
I just pickled a cucumber and a half, and I'm so excited for tomorrow's breakfast. I'm gonna have heartburn while hiking, but there's like quite a bit of Thai chilies in it, so it's gonna be spicy pickles, and they're like thicker cut than you can usually get at the grocery store. I'm just like so about pickling right now.
I got onto pickle talk for a while. It was the same time I got onto kimchi talk.
Good.
But this guy had like he was experimenting with different pickle recipes and he was like documenting it. And I think he did like a margarita pickle or something. And it sounded great. I don't like tequila. But
I am not a huge fan of following exact measurements of a recipe that I found online.
Pickles are all vibes.
100%.
Man. It's just like about that much of that.
I'm currently experimenting with what ratio and amount of vinegar to water I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Saw a tweet that was like a year ago, and it was this girl. She was like, the only thing I have kept from the pandemic, and I can't explain why, is that every day at 1 p.m. I have a pickle.
Have I told you this story?
No.
I found this on TikTok. So this is not my story, but there's this woman who would always, like, since she was young, would always like wake up in the middle of the night and eat a green apple for like no reason.
What? In the middle of the night?
Yeah.
They have a small amount of caffeine in them. That's an insane thing to do.
I don't know.
Okay.
But it was like a habit that she had. And she went on a first date with this guy, and she ended up spending the night, and she had told him this green apple fact, and she woke up around 3 a.m. like fully expecting she wasn't going to get an apple, but she looked over and the guy had waited until she fell asleep and went and bought a green apple for her.
Okay, that is truly so sweet because it
That is
all worked
love.
out well.
Yeah.
If I were to wake up in a stranger's home, in a stranger's bed at 2:30 in the morning, and they're not there.
He was there. He was back. He was asleep.
I know, but if she had woken up while he was out
gone.
to get the
Yeah.
apple, totally different story. Because I'm definitely waking up, they're not right next to me, and now I'm hearing the front door open and I'm gonna get
die.
Murdered. Right. I'm about
Anyway,
to go
they got
crazy.
married,
That's
so,
so cute.
yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Love's real.
I know.
For
I
some.
was like, wow. Casey, do you love me?
Katie's never gotten me an apple in the middle of the night.
I've never asked for one, but he should know.
God, I feel like there's something very similar that happens in Bridget Jones' Diary, the first one, but I couldn't tell you at this point.
It's been a really long time since I've watched those.
Actually, not been a really long time for me, but I still can't remember the exact details. Good. I mean, I am living my life the way that I was meant to, and the way that all of them, aka the listeners, think I am.
Yeah. No, the Grant's not full of many surprises. He's full of some. But
I'm a delight, but it's not a surprise.
As soon as you learn he cooks a lot of things, I think that might be it.
I do. I cook quite a bit. Yeah,
and runs half marathons, especially if you're his doctor. It's very confusing.
This last checkup, this doctor really was like, I don't know. You're still fine, though.
Yeah. It could have been muscle. You never know.
What? Kind of wasn't. What else did I need to tell you? I'm listening to the story that we just published, and when I say just, I mean today, but 2 weeks ago, which is Down to Business, Down Under.
Yeah.
We're so funny at the start of that. I was like legitimately laughing the entire time.
That's good. I don't remember what we said
It had
at any
been
time.
at least 3 weeks since I've listened to one of our episodes, because when I was on the road trip, listening to myself when I'm on that kind of road trip, that's way too much of me.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I am there with my own thoughts, but I don't need icing on that. You know?
I can listen to maybe about half of one episode, like a normal episode, before I'm like, what am I doing?
Right. I know this story already.
Yeah, especially if I'm not editing. I'm like, why am I here? Yeah, like what the hell? And then it makes it even worse when our hairstylist tagged our Well I Laughed Instagram this past week because she was like doing her hair and listening to the podcast and hearing my own voice on like still makes me like and you would think like a year plus into it I would be like, okay, that's what my voice sounds like, or I don't know. I for some reason I still firmly believe that my voice should have become a radio voice by now, and that's maybe the mics will change that. I'm living on a dream.
I have a radio voice now. My actual speaking voice much lower than what they're.
That's
expecting.
good. Mine apparently has not gotten
Girl,
any
that was
lower.
sarcasm.
Oh,
I think
okay,
this is
cool.
as low of a
Excellent.
registry as I ever
Thank
get.
you. I was like, great, you're better than me, Grant.
No, I just am usually my pitch is so harsh in real life that this is me modulating down. It's like I'm back in middle school. But with that, Can we go ahead and jump into tonight's story?
I guess if you want to.
I am actually so excited about it. It took me, and I think we covered this on the last episode, it took me a hot minute to figure out first what story I wanted to do. And then I found this deep in my notes.
Yeah.
So this is, actually, hold on, let me find this. The thing that originally gave me the inspo.
I was so nervous to even start trying to pick a story because I don't know what you're gonna do, and I'm just way too worried. We've experienced it once with Mulan, and I couldn't have that happen
Which,
twice.
thank God, I didn't even start researching that.
Yeah.
Okay, so this, I thought it was from a listener. I don't think it was, based off of like what was the original source material for it all. But I am excited to talk to you today about today's topic. The original theme was going to be, well, that's weird. And then I was like, not specific
so
enough.
vague.
Well, that's weird.
Yeah.
So instead we chose horsing around.
Yeah.
And I want to let you know, and everyone else know, that the person we're about to introduce to us, we can root for them, okay? They're weird, but it's not like, and then he murdered a whole community, right? Like, it's not going to end that way, okay?
Perfect.
You can kind of fall in love with him if you want, okay?
The story's about Grant, by the way.
He's like really weird, but lovable.
Yeah.
Okay, well, not gonna not be able to think about that now.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Thanks. Okay, well then let's start off with a mean question. Okay, how about that?
Okay, Abraham Lincoln.
Okay, so today's episode was... No, I'm kidding. I know we made that joke every episode.
It's never gonna get
Still
old.
funny to me.
What are we gonna do once one of us covers Abraham Lincoln?
I know. Did you see there's a new Broadway play called Oh, Mary on Broadway? It's a comedy. I think it's a musical.
The fact that it's a play just feels rude.
It stars the character Mary Todd Lincoln.
Okay.
But instead, she is an alcoholic cabaret dancer.
Love that.
And then it goes from there. I forget the person who is like the writer and like star of it, but he's been on Culturtistas before, that podcast. Super funny. He was like, I actually did zero research into Mary Todd Lincoln because I didn't want that to burden the like storytelling. He was like, I don't want to make a joke and be like, haha, that'll play because like that's where she's from. And like no one gets it. So it's in 0% any way at all related to history.
That.
It's just this imagined version of Mary Todd Lincoln, and they run for it.
I love that. Have you heard about the show on Broadway? I don't know if it's Broadway. It's definitely not on Broadway. I don't know if it's a musical or a play. It's off Broadway. It's called Dracula.
No.
I'll send you some reels from it.
Please.
It's so funny. It's like all comedy, and it's just this like skeevy. I think it might be.
Is one of the vampires openly gay? And
I'm assuming just
cruises?
way he presents.
Because someone, I think, sent the podcast an Instagram video of something like this, and I had such little context for it. I just had to respond with, haha, yeah. Like about 85% of the stuff we get, I know exactly what it is. Like, even if I haven't seen it, like I know, oh yeah, this is what it's referencing. But sometimes I'm like, yep, you got us.
This one's really funny. I'll send it to you. I was really torn between seeing this one in Hadestown, and I'm really glad I did see Hadestown. But this one is still, I like want to see it anyway.
Well, it's so funny that we're talking about Broadway.
Parodies. Yeah.
Because our story has nothing to do with Broadway. My question, of all of the countries I have visited outside of the United States, this is a trick question, what is the one I am most eager to travel back to?
It's a trick question?
Correct.
So it's not Germany?
Correct.
Yeah.
Because if Germany was nice, but it's Oktoberfest that I really love.
Yeah, you really want to go
I'm
back
sure Germany
to.
was also great, but I didn't see much else of it. What's the country I'm most eager to get back to?
Oh. Greece.
No. I'm going to find time in Greece too. Ireland.
Right, I did know that.
Ireland just captured my heart and my soul.
I do love that.
I only spent 5 days there, but 4.5 of them were solo, and almost all of it was spent in Dublin.
I would spend 2 weeks easily between like Ireland, Scotland, Wales.
Yes.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, don't come outside of summer because it's like rainy and cold. That's what I want. My entire closet is sweaters.
Because we don't experience that on the day-to-day, so it's like a vacation.
We're also such warm indivials. I started to bring water to our recordings because I'm just warm all the time. Yeah. So we're going to go to Ireland.
Okay.
We're going to go to Ireland, like centuries ago.
Love
But
that.
that's okay. Today's sources include a whole bunch of stuff, including the Galway Advertiser, a website dedicated to Irish history, a couple of biographies. All of this is linked. Wikipedia, obviously, but the podcast, and I'm going to give them a huge shout out. They gave me a lot of really interesting nuggets.
Oh, Jesus.
There's an Irish history podcast titled Shite Talk.
Nice.
And they were great, really educational, really informative, great vibe, deeply authentic Irish accents to the point where I had to
Yeah, like, what
like really
Yes.
focus. There was no second reading of something else as it was talking and going on at the same time.
Yeah. That is truly the hardest one to understand when it's like
Yes.
a deep accent.
That, or I think probably Scottish as well. Like Irish, I could almost, because it's almost,
You're right.
there's almost
Scottish
like a
is
rhyme
harder.
to it.
Yeah,
but
I think Irish is slightly easier.
yeah.
Just because it's like a brighter.
So today, I'm going to talk to you about the man, the myth, the legend, Richard Martin.
Okay.
Is this name
No.
ringing? Amazing. Okay. So Richard Martin, and again, we can root for him at the start here, folks. Okay. He has a wild, funny, and interesting life. Okay. Feel free to laugh at all of it. You don't have to hedge your bets on it. Okay. Richard Martin was born in Dangan, Dangan,
Okay.
in County Galway, the only son of Robert Martin Fitzanthony of Birch Hall, County Galway. And Bridget Bonwell, a daughter of Robert Bonwell, 12th Baron of Trimsletown.
That none of those feel like real places.
When they
and I
said it on
really
the-
don't mean to be offensive. They all feel like they came out of a storybook.
Like the first 60 seconds of shite talk, that is the sentence they said. And I was like, oh, okay, we're going to have to put everything else aside. And fortunately, some of the sources at that point that I had read, I think they had also used to source some of it. So I was
Okay,
able
yeah.
to almost find.
Pull it together.
Right, like kind of mini transcripts of certain sections.
Really funny.
Yeah. So it's like kind of hard to tell because it sounds like he was born into nobility and wealth, but they don't ever refer to him as Lord Martin or like Lord Richard Martin.
Do they? Oh, yeah, I guess they call them lairds, but
Like there wasn't
Yeah,
ever like a
like a
distinguisher
title, yeah.
And later on, we're gonna find out he gets brought into college as a gentleman commoner.
what?
Yeah, I know. And again, it's like, am I
like-
just unfamiliar with the Irish ways?
It's like economy plus or like business class.
Yes. Also known as anything not Spirit, Frontier,
Yeah.
or Southwest. Okay, so related to Trimsleton and Baron and Branwell. It's a lot of stuff, but it's great. He was raised at Dangan House, situated on the Corrib River, 4 miles upriver from the town of Galway.
Okay.
His father's family were Jacobites, which means he just supported... Okay, sweet. For those of you who don't know, he supported a certain ruler during a time period.
I watched Outlander.
Good. Okay. So Galway's in Western Ireland, like
Yeah.
far Western Ireland.
Most of Outlander, I think, is in Scotland, like the Highlands.
I'm saying Ireland, though, which is a different part.
I'm aware. Fucking jackass.
I'm not trying to confuse you. It's just we have a mostly American listener base.
And we're gonna hear from the non-American
There's even a
listeners.
moment, too, where I'm like, listen, non-Americans, I know it's this and not that, but I had to, like, simplify it for us, you
For
know?
all us dumb Americans.
Exactly. I had a student once who thought Washington, D.C. was in Michigan.
Oh, man.
Okay, so his family is super important because they are one of the tribes of Galway, which are these 14 merchant families of Galway that kind of make up this like upper crust aristocratic or semi-aristocratic community in Galway. What's super important is you have Belfast and Dublin on the east coast of Ireland.
Okay.
And then you have the great expanse of Ireland in the center. And then you know how it looks like Ireland kind of got dragged and it's leaving pieces behind it?
Yeah.
That's the western edge. And right there in the center crook of it all is Galway.
That's also where the Isle of Man is.
No, it's not. It's in
No?
between Ireland and Scotland and England.
What are you thinking about? Wait, I need to look at a map.
I'm
'cause
pulling
now
up a map.
Yeah, now I'm lost. I thought I knew what you
I,
were referencing.
with love, have played so many board games. So,
Yeah, I know.
there's Galway in the Crook.
Oh, okay.
And
You're
then
thinking
there's
like...
Isle of Man. It's getting dragged in all of these.
You're thinking... I was imagining it the other way
Like,
because I
ripped
had the
away.
right like shape, but just the
I
wrong
did this and you
side,
thought I was
yeah.
ripping it away from it, and instead I'm just dragging it across the Atlantic.
Yeah.
We're both right.
Okay. You don't need to say it like that.
I'm giving you cover right now. I'm being her friend.
Anyone that listens on YouTube, which is like maybe 5% of our listener base, knows exactly what happened.
Listen, you could have also just been like, yeah, and then we could have high-fived.
It's just not how we work, and you know that.
It's definitely not how we work.
This podcast wouldn't be working right now if I didn't...
If we weren't highly combative best friends.
All the time. Yeah, all the time.
Okay, so he's part of these 14 tribes of Galway.
Really quick.
Yeah.
When we got dinner after trying on dresses, it was me, Casey, and Casey's parents, and me and Michelle were kind of recapping the day or something.
This was 5 days ago.
Yeah,
yes,
and
okay.
then Paul was like, so I know you've like wanted to meet Grant, like was he like everything you wanted?
Okay, I'm actually so not ready to get this information live.
I mean, let's be real, Michelle wouldn't have said anything negative in front of me anyway. Yeah, and he even addressed that. He was like, I know you wouldn't say anything bad anyway, but like, what did you think anyway? And anyway, Michelle was like, yeah, he was really great. He was like really quick and funny and witty. Yeah, she had a lot of things, really good things to say. But then she said, yeah, Maya like really called him out on his shit though. And then I like remember both of them saying that about me when they first met me and Casey together, and I just had a moment like staring in a mirror like, am I the problem?
No, not at all. This is just who we are.
It was just funny.
Yeah,
Anyway,
absolutely.
continue.
It's a high-paced work environment, you know? Wolf of Wall Street style.
Here's the thing, I'm sick.
I'll go ahead and put my notes back
Yeah.
down.
I'm sick, so I'm recovering from a cold, and my abs are sore because I've done solid core twice now this week, which is unheard of.
Yeah.
And every time I cough, my abs hurt.
None of us are asking you to do that. I want you to know. None of us are asking you to do this.
I know, I get it, I know. I don't know why I'm doing it, but
Anyways,
I am.
little Victorian boy, go ahead.
Yeah,
you were
but
saying.
now every time I cough, and you know when you cough, you like can't, it's never one cough, right? And so like my abs hurt, and then I'm like, I gotta cough again. Okay, I gotta cough one more time. My abs are just hurting. Anyway, that's
Well,
just
I'll
what
let
happened.
you know when we're towards the end of Act 2, so you can start coughing up blood, okay? Because she has the consumption.
I do.
I don't know what comedian made that joke of like blood in the handkerchief. Oh, we're at the end of Act 2, baby. She got the consumption. I don't know which comedian made that joke.
That is a good
It's all
joke. I don't
about.
think I've heard it, but
I think I've said it
funny.
to you and just never credited it to anybody.
that sounds like something you do.
It sounds like something I actively do all the time.
Yeah, every
I think
day.
it's why Michelle thinks I'm so quick and funny and a fast learner.
Well, she listens to the podcast religiously, so
Good. Okay, so he comes from an important family.
Yes.
It's basically all I've told you.
Yes.
How about we hit you with a year now, okay? This is like late 1750s, okay?
okay.
So 18th century, he'll be super active from like 1775 until the 1800s. I want to leave the like obvious death because it was in the 1700s. An
Okay.
open question mark for a while. Okay, so they were a noble family of Norman descent. Tracing they were in like, not Mormon, Norman.
No, I turned my head
Are you
too
falling
fast.
apart
I
during
got
this story?
I got like a crick and it
Hey, Maya,
sounded weird.
You
Sorry.
gotta stop horsing around.
So sorry. I'm sorry. Just turn off my mic,
I'm
honestly.
so proud of that.
That was good. That was
I worked
good.
in the theme listener. If you don't know what I just did.
Or
of
he's just
Norman
watched
descent.
BoJack Horseman. What is Norman?
Like the northern coast of
Norman. Okay.
the northern coast of France, around the province of Normandy. Those people invaded the British Isles and helped
How did
introduce.
they come up with these names of like, I'm from Colorado, I'm a Coloradan?
I mean, I'm sure all of that has a. I don't have. That's not what the story is today, Maya.
Girl.
The river looked red to the Spanish.
That's wild. Continue. I don't know what you're talking about. Just keep talking.
Okay, so Richard Martin, born to an important family.
Yeah.
Quick quiz. What year was he born? Around what time?
I don't know.
The 1750s.
1750s.
So because he's
1750s.
because he's
Okay.
born in Ireland, he is born Catholic. But because his
Okay.
family wants him to have a political future, he immediately is converted to Protestantism. Like, it's not a decision
okay.
he makes as an adult. He's like raised as a Protestant, which was super common for like Irish aristocrats at the time. They were called Protestants of convenience because the English crown was afraid that Catholics would take their orders from the Pope and not from the English crown itself. And so you couldn't be a Catholic really and like see yourself advance. It's like a whole gosh darn thing.
Is that the C of E or something? Is the church split because Henry VIII?
Correct.
Right?
He made the Church of England.
And is that where this?
That's where part of this starts to come
Okay,
from.
cool,
Yeah.
cool.
Where am I? Kate. So he's born in the 1750s. He's a wealthy landlord. And he's
Perfect.
born Catholic, raised Protestant.
Yes.
End of the first paragraph.
I'll shut up.
It's okay. The first paragraph is always the easiest to interrupt
It's been a weird couple
'cause
hours. I haven't showered.
It's all bio information
Yeah.
too. So it's not like it's important to like
Yeah.
keep a momentum going from a narrative basis.
Now I feel like I need to remember it.
And his like early days and early teen years aren't super important other than the fact that he was raised in an aristocratic family. So he studied at Harrow and then after some like extra tutoring for exams gains admission into Trinity College,
Okay.
but Trinity College, Cambridge, and then he was admitted as a quote gentleman commoner at Trinity on March 4th, 1773.
Okay. Is that like what everyone's admitted as?
I don't
if you're
think
not
so.
like royalty?
There for all of the research I did, and I did go down several rabbit holes. You're going to hear that later in this episode.
Yeah.
Wasn't entirely sure what it meant, but it sounded like the commoner tag was like a little bit of a dig, right? Like
Okay.
not a true aristocrat.
So he is.
from what
Is
I can
he the
tell.
bottom of the barrel, or is he like one step above the bottom?
You know,
of the
I
barrel?
think he's the bottom of the barrel in terms of people who are allowed to even go to college.
college,
Because
okay.
it's not like they were
Okay,
sending
yeah.
like non-aristocratic
Yeah,
people
that-
there or
yeah, that's
whatever.
what I figured,
And
yeah.
also his family does basically own the entire area around Galway. Like that is the estate he's very quickly going to inherit. But also it's
That
on like
feels like
the
he
western
should-
side
yeah.
of but it's on the western side of
Oh.
Ireland, you know, it's like away from
Yeah.
Belfast and Dublin and things like that. There's
Okay.
all these like geopolitics going on. Here's what I can tell you.
Okay.
He enters Trinity College in 1773, and he won't finish, but he will study for a long time. He'll get
Okay.
really smart there, and he can't finish because he's involved with a duel. You know, like
Yep. Love that. Love that. We should bring those back, honestly. I'd
So-
love to see Biden and Trump go at
just
it.
shoot each other a little bit. I don't know if we're allowed to say that
Yeah,
still.
I don't know if that might be too soon. It'll be 2 weeks when this releases. I don't
Have
know.
you seen some of the Chinese videos about it? Listen.
We'll do that in between.
We absolutely will. We absolutely will. Don't get a computer virus if you're Googling it right now. Probably don't do it on a work computer either. And don't tweet it out afterwards. But like you can just kind of appreciate some of the comedic elements of it. There's like an anime song playing in the background. It's great. It's great. Anyways, here's the thing. So one source I read about why he wasn't able to finish is because he was the second man of a duel and had to drop out for a few months or a year. So I was like, what's the second man? Is that like the
Second
hype
man is the one that has to talk to the other second man, right? And
they're
organize the
like-
doctor.
Right. They're
Yeah.
like, let's not have this happen.
Yeah.
Can we
They're
work
the
it?
last
Right.
10 dual commandments from
I kind
Hamilton.
of
Come
love
on.
that you know this, and I
yeah.
know it's because of
That's
Hamilton.
the 10 dual commandments.
So
Number
they,
10.
so they like, let's
Yeah.
not do it. Oh, we're gonna do it. And then they like
Yeah.
pace it out, and then they like load each other's guns, and then
Why did he have to go out for like an entire semester for this?
because also as second man, turns out not always, but sometimes something the second man could do, and something that Richard Martin did do, is if man number one goes down, second man kind of gets to pick up the gun and also put a shot out. And from what I
What?
could tell, I think that's what happened with one of these first duels, is that man number one goes down and Richard Martin's like, tag me in, coach. And then like, and they're like, you guys got to get out of here for a little bit.
Oh, so he was like essentially
legal.
suspended.
Yeah.
Okay,
for
I thought it
fighting.
was like he was like, I'm too busy with this duel. I gotta.
Well, here's the thing. He really loved dueling.
Oh.
Actually loved it so much. And it's so funny that is immediately
Yeah.
what you asked about. See, it's reported that Richard Martin was engaged in and survived over 100 duels using both swords and pistols. He was actually one source. So the most consistent thing I found was over 100 duels. An exact number was hard to count. One source put it pretty close to 200 duels that he survived.
That just like the odds statistically don't make sense.
Correct.
Like, how many people did he
kill?
Muck duck.
I will. Muck duck. So here's the thing. Also unclear. I have at least 2 confirmed kills in the story. One of which he feels bad about later.
Aaron Burr.
Here's the thing. He actually developed a nickname called Hair Trigger Dick.
Is that like the Minuteman? Or like
Let you process.
That can't be a compliment.
Richard Martin is like legitimately 16, 17 years old at Trinity College shooting people, and his name is Richard Martin, but he has already earned the reputation as Hair Trigger Dick. For those of you who are wondering what the word dick is doing in there, much like all Bills you meet are named William.
Well, Johns or Jacks for some unknown reason.
Dick is a shorthand version for the name Richard. And so he gets the name Hair Trigger Dick.
It just...
Listen, if this was a Patreon episode, you know what I would be saying right now. But there might be kids in the car. What's actually so funny is he is also a colonel in the Irish Volunteers, which are basically like, whenever we got to fight, we're volunteering to do it. Because it's like, maybe we're trying to repulse the British, who at this point occupy, conquer, / govern Ireland. Maybe we're like the local police force out in Galway. Colonel in that army regiment, engaged in over 100 duels. Here's something super fun, though. Here's something actually really fun.
This man is Dwight Schrute. His family owns land.
I want you to remember that in 12 minutes to an hour and a half from now, whenever we get to that part in the story. You never know. You never know what's going to catch one of us. About how Dwight Schrute, this man, is.
I'm just having prophetic dreams over here, guys.
So many of these notes are so funny. So I'm going to talk to you about one of the duels that Richard Martin, a.k.a. Hair Trigger Dick, got involved in. But before I do, I want you to know that there is a musical coming out about Richard Martin, musical / play, that's being called The Irish Hamilton. And I'm pretty sure it's only because they both feature duels.
Yeah, it is. It is. It has nothing to do with politics. It's just like someone dies by gun. And that's featured in the first and second act.
And so I will tell you that title at the end. Again, I'm trying to keep certain aspects of his bio hidden until we get there kind of stuff.
Is Lin-Manuel Miranda involved?
Listen, don't tell him. I actually think it's already been published. I think it's too late for Lynn to come in. But one of the men... Sorry, I also put, men will literally survive hundreds of near-death experiences before going to therapy.
Because it sounds like that's what he did.
Yes. So one of the duels that he had was with a man named George Fitzgerald, who was also known as Fighting Fitzgerald. Fighting Fitzgerald was super weird and mean and kept a pet bear with him. Well, he would dress it up as an old woman, sneak it onto trains, and then after the train had left the station, undress the bear, and then command it to kiss everyone in the cabin.
Kiss?
Like the bear would go up and kiss you on its face, on your face.
That's cute.
There's at least one report of a man jumping out of a moving train in fear as this bear wandered around. Anyways, Fighting Fitzgerald.
What?
Yeah, Fighting Fitzgerald was super weird because there was a surgery at this time where they would just kind of drill a hole into the top of your head to let out ghost. I don't know what exactly. I don't know what the desired outcome of that surgery was, but whatever.
Give me the lobotomy.
No, it's not up to it's like literally at the top.
It has to do with the brain. I don't know if it feels the same.
So again, don't know what the desired outcome of that surgery was supposed to be. And what I can tell you is that many people think he was mean, weird, and a smidge of a psychopath because whoever did it messed it up. So Fighting Fitzgerald, a man who will duel Hair Trigger Dick, is just kind of grumpy and
has a pet
megalomaniac. At one point, he rocks up to this like house in Galway with his pet bear, and he like knocks on these noble people's door, and he was like, I heard you have this like great, beautiful hunting dog. I would like to see it. And they were like, okay, here's the dog. Trigger warning, animal abuse, plus 15, shoots it dead. Right there in front of everyone. You can come back. I'm not going to mention anything else. Anyways, that obviously super upsets.
What the grant?
Right, sorry. I totally forgot about that part, because that's not even the part that has a trigger warning in this episode. Anyways, that really pisses off Hair Trigger Dick, who then pursues Fighting Fitzgerald for years.
Okay, well, I love Hair Trigger Dick now.
Right, Fighting Fitzgerald will actually turn himself in on 2 separate occasions to get away from Hair Trigger Dick, and then also escape prison because he didn't want to be, like, in jail either. Eventually, Hair Trigger Dick caught him, and no one really liked Fighting Fitzgerald, but now there was a reason for Hair Trigger Dick, aka Richard Martin, to duel him, and so they did duel each other. Martin gets 2 hits on him because there's 2 rounds. Doesn't kill him, but I think at that point, like, Fighting Fitzgerald
does more damage
to his
Fighting Fitzgerald.
But I think no one really talks about this, but I do think it was at least partially disabling, because that seems to be in the history books where Fighting Fitzgerald's story kind of fizzles out and ends.
Yeah, because suddenly he's not able to just walk up to people's houses.
Listen, I really am sorry for hitting you with that detail.
Oh my God.
I could have prepped you more with it. I mean, he got his comeuppance. But here's the thing. Here's the thing that you need to know. Fighting Fitzgerald did the one thing you did not want to do around Richard Martin, which was abuse an animal.
That's what I was about. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Richard Martin, for all of his quirks, a man who would shoot you dead on sight, and had. If he caught you, this is so funny. If he caught you,
yeah,
abusing an animal in any way, he would take you physically and bring you to what they called Martin's jail, which was an island in the middle of a lake, and he would leave you there until you apologized.
I fucking love this man. I love him. That's so fucking funny.
Because here's the thing, it's actually super uncommon to know how to swim at this time, and so you would drop him off of the island.
I fucking love that.
He would leave. Which is, like super illegal, but
he owns it,
right? And also kind of owns the county, and everyone just kind of knows that there's like that's kind of just Hair Trigger Dick's thing. Like, if you don't want to be locked up on his island, don't be a dick towards animals. Really doing a lot for dicks though in this story, Richard Martin.
In the arms of an angel. But it's just showing the people on the
it's
island.
Just Richard Martin. Yeah. Okay, so the duel with Fighting Fitz isn't why he has to leave Trinity College, but that kind of happens in his before 30s time. He's just out here shooting and firing people, because 1776 is a really busy year for Richard Martin. He gets married. We'll talk about his wife in a second. He leaves Trinity College and gets accepted into, let me make sure I get this correct. Yep, he gets accepted into the bar in Ireland. Okay. So he's now a lawyer. He's married. And as I think kind of as like a hooray, hooray, he goes on his honeymoon to North America, to the 13 colonies, where he becomes a first-hand witness to the start of the American Revolution.
So him and Hamilton actually were probably...
There's actually way more of an overlap than you would say.
In the same room. Fucking hell. Oh, Jesus.
And then also in 1776, he gets elected to Parliament, but the Irish Parliament, so not the one for the entire United Kingdom, just for Ireland specifically, which is like a very much semi-autonomous country within Great Britain.
It's like if you were in the Congress of Texas,
Yes, known as the state legislature.
Yep.
But Texas has not really that much independence. Ireland, it's...
Texas likes to think they have a lot of
No, actually, Texas was the right example there. I'm going to give you that.
Yeah,
that was
thank you.
Maybe California, too.
I thought Colorado, and I was like, that doesn't make sense. We would have a really hard time getting out.
We're too compromising, 100%. So 1776 is this huge year for him, right? into the bar, which witnesses the start of the American Revolution. Marries his wife, Elizabeth. Okay. So Richard Martin's early life is kind of wild. Now, I'm obviously reading from my notes. Honestly, his entire life is. So school doesn't go super well. Richard Martin doesn't graduate, but is smart and well regarded. He comes from an important family in Galway and has some interesting connections. For instance, he is married to the Honorable Elizabeth Vesey, Vesey, a daughter of Lord Trimsletown, which I do think makes her like his second or first cousin or something like that.
We're watching House of the Dragon right now.
Right.
I'm all about
I do
the
think
incest.
there's a smidge enough distance. You know how they're all kind of like, oh, cousin, and it's
not like Damon like actively eating out his mother or whatever.
No, correct.
Yeah.
So that did leave a mark. Good to know.
Yeah, it didn't leave a mark right away because I didn't realize it was the mother until she said, "You're my favorite son," and then the scene ended and I didn't have time to process.
You were born first, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
Weird.
So let's talk about Elizabeth Vesey, his wife, but who is important in her own way.
Good.
So, Elizabeth Vesey is way more educated than the average aristocratic woman at the time.
Excellent.
And that is because she is a co-founder of an organization called the Blue Stockings Society. See, even aristocratic women in Ireland at this time are not allowed to pursue a college-level education.
Yeah.
So you guys basically get taught kind of some of your like early stuff. Maybe you learn French or Italian, right?
Yeah.
You learn an instrument, how to draw.
And then you learn the pianoforte.
Correct, exactly. And so Elizabeth Vesey, along with others, founded the Blue Stocking Society, where she would play host and invite basically professors and other learned men in their fields to instruct and lecture on their specific topics to the women. Yes.
Yeah.
So she is way more educated than the average aristocratic woman, but that's kind of by her choice, right? Like sometimes, like in the case of Mary Shelley, she has like a father and a mother who are like, we're going to actually properly educate you.
Right.
And that's wonderful and we love that. Elizabeth Vesey in her like late teens makes the decision, I want to do this for myself.
Okay,
I'm going to
cool.
educate myself. So the Blue Stocking Society is an important group. They teach each other science and literature. It has several important members to it, including Mary Wollstonecraft, mother of Mary Shelley. We love to see it. We're so back. We're so back.
I love that.
You knew I couldn't dabble in this time period without getting to the Shelleys a little bit.
We are going to get to some people we know clearly.
I might be able to actually talk about Percy Shelley in this episode later, too.
Goddamn.
We're all going to get to it. So anyways, Richard Martin and Elizabeth Vesey were kind of a power couple with a difficult-to-explain relationship. Insert House of the Dragon reference here. Some called Elizabeth Vesey, quote, long-suffering, while other sources suggest Richard Martin was devoted to her. Either way, they both loved theater. And Richard Martin, hair trigger Dick, who witnessed the start of the revolution, opens Galway's first theater.
Love that.
He is going off to Dublin to sit in the Irish Parliament. He's bringing his wife along. Dublin has this huge theater scene, and it's important at the time. It's really the post-theater after party that like society is really happening.
And that is true today.
Correct. It is there where two important things happen. First, Richard Martin develops his ability to create a spot-on impersonation. He is so good at impersonations, it's one of the things biographers still write about him.
Cool.
If you were hanging around or were a well-known figure or, God forbid, had just stepped out to the patio, he would fucking nail your impersonation. And everyone loved it. He was so good at them.
Meanwhile, Victor Hugo's
hilarious.
in France just shoving oranges and curves and talking about his conception.
Again, kind of like all of these little circles overlapping. Yeah, we're not that far away from Victor Hugo actually right now in all of this. So he is really good at impersonations, a skill that'll come back and be important for him later. His wife becomes a lover of the theater, and when they go back to Galway, well, my husband owns the theater, so you need a leading lady? Well, I guess I could do it. And it's like, what's the director going to say? Like, no ma'am, your name's on the building.
Is this like... Because they don't let women perform in theater. Is that around this time?
That's like 200 years or so earlier. That's more the Elizabethan court. So women can and do perform on the stage now. And they are essentially movie stars.
Hell yeah.
And so they come back. She stars in her own performances, but then the Martins host these big after parties now in Galway, trying to recreate the social scene they have in Dublin. Again,
hell yeah.
This man just seems honest to God, like a good time. Like, this is much more of a Victor Hugo than in anything else.
It feels like Victor Hugo and Lord Byron would like be at his party.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, so either way, they both loved theater and opened up Galway's first theater. In addition to hanging out with Mary Wollstonecraft, she also had an affair. This is now Elizabeth Vesey.
Yeah.
Had an affair with famous Irish patriot Theobald Wolfe Tone. He will just become known historically as Wolfe Tone. I want you to know, when I was listening to the Irish History podcast,
I would not have been
and they
able
were
to pick
saying,
up that name.
no, I 4 or 5 searches of what I thought it was, and then I had to start including her name and like the search in it too. Turns out Wolfe Tone, hugely important Irish patriot. Our education did fail us in this department. Super important. Let me talk to you about this relationship for a second.
Amazing.
Okay. I have the details about the affair, but first, more about Wolfe Tone. He advocated that as long as Irish Catholics and Protestants were wary of each other, England could divide Ireland and govern it from afar. He helped found the Society of United Irishmen, which was open to both Catholics and Protestants. The organization is an important moment in the late 18th century in Ireland as it advances the cause of Irish self-rule and ultimately independence. Its legacy is also complicated and disputed by other Irish groups today.
Yeah.
But that's an overview. This is me like not trying to wade too much into it. What I'm trying to say is Wolfe Tone, who's like also a writer and like knows all these languages and kind of a romantic, is also a patriot. It's this really cool time in history where you can be like a little gay, love theater, write a bunch of poetry, sleep with every woman manageable, run a nationalist organization. It's a lot like the RNC this weekend in Milwaukee.
I heard the RNC described as the Met Gala for people who don't believe in abortion rights.
I heard it described as the Super Bowl for the app Grindr.
Oh, amazing. Good.
So I think we really did lose something when our society became more less hypocritical.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But Wolfe Tone grows up to be a super important guy. But when he meets Elizabeth Vesey, Richard Martin's wife, he's just an 18-year-old in love. Okay, so Richard Martin's wife, Elizabeth Vesey, and Wolfe Tone meet when Wolfe Tone is helping tutor Richard Martin's younger half-brothers.
Okay.
So
How
Richard,
old is Elizabeth at this point?
22 to 25-ish.
Okay. Yeah.
It's not wildly inappropriate, but it's definitely like Richard Martin's like, oh, young man from Trinity College who's like smart.
Yeah.
Please tutor my younger brothers as they are the heirs to my estate until I have my own children. And Wolfe Tone's like, absolutely.
Also, I'm going to sleep with your wife.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Here's actually what one historian put it. This comes from the Galway Advisor.
Okay.
One of the more intriguing pieces of theatrical memorabilia in Galway is the poster for 2 plays, Douglas and All the World's a Stage, to be performed at Richard Martin's Theatre called Curwan's Lane on Friday, August 8th, 1783. The playbill shows the cast will include Martin himself, his wife, Elizabeth Vesey, and Theobald Wolfe Tone.
So this is like charades at home.
Correct.
Yeah,
but they're
like on a
inviting
stage,
people and they're like,
and you have to
party with
pay,
us
yeah.
afterwards. It's a lot like my dinner parties.
Yeah, that's hysterical.
It is shockingly similar
Yeah.
to events I have forced you to go to. At the moment, Wolfe Tone was just 18 years of age, but he was totally besought by Martin's wife, Elizabeth, who he called Eliza. Wolfe Tone would later write, I fell in love with a woman who made me miserable for more than 2 years.
Eliza.
I was waiting. I was giving you your Hamilton
Thank
pause.
you.
Courting Martin's wife was a risky business. Martin himself was described as, quote, short, thick-set, energetic man, charming and entertaining, with a gift for mimicry. It was advisable, however, to be wary in his presence.
I'm not convinced he's not Jeff the mongoose.
Well, so it was advisable.
Good at mimicry, short, stout, charming.
Okay, but then it ends with this, but it was advised to be wary in his presence because he was more familiarly known as Hair Trigger Dick by reason of his notorious skill with dueling pistol. So not only is he sleeping with his like literal boss and also the man, like not the man who pays him his tutor salary,
Yes.
the man who owns the theater he performs in. And the man who's killed people legally through duels
is his boss.
That's right. That's the wife of the guy that he's gonna sleep with.
Cool. Yeah, that seems like a really good decision for your well-being.
Right. Okay, so now here's where we've dabbled in like the eccentric. Now let me get to what the sources say. For 2 years, Elizabeth and Wolftone, such a cool name too.
It is such a cool name.
It's also 2 words. Wolf, spelled like the animal, tone.
I was thinking it was
Wolftone.
like WOLFETONE.
It is, but you just got to put a space between the E and the T. Wolf Town. Love it. Might
that's
name
cool.
a kid that one day. Like in class. I'm never going to have my own children. For 2 years, Elizabeth and Wolftone definitely courted each other. We have writings to prove that they wrote fondly and longingly to each other. But they never admit in writing to crossing the line into physical intimacy. Wolftone would write to Elizabeth in Latin so the servants could not read the letters, which is extra hot because Elizabeth taught herself Latin at the Blue Stocking Society.
Oh, wow.
But writing in Latin so that way the nosy servants can't pre-read your love letter.
Bisexual. Like, I
Preach it, girl.
would do anything for this woman. Wow. I have a crush on her. That's insane. Also, I love the turntables of like the Irish Hamilton being married also to Eliza, but Eliza's the one on the side being like,
Eliza. However you say that in Latin. So we have one of their letters, and here's how it's translated. Not only is it written in Latin, but then Wolftone gives Eliza a lover's name, and he calls her Jane. Here, just listen how thirsty this letter is.
oh God.
My dearest Jane, if all is not well, I hope this letter finds you convalescing. I am working hard to see you. Are you still not amused? Has the illness begun to take it from you? I'm looking forward to a whole bundle of verses from you. Do not disappoint me. Reply to this letter, or rather, this little letter, and believe me to be hopeful of seeing you as soon as I can. Your sincere friend, T.W. Tone. And then he changes from Latin to Greek.
Jesus.
Do you understand me? A word is enough to the wise. So I think he's like, you're my muse, you're my inspiration, babes. I need some of them poetic verses from you. What you got for me right now? What's going on? Do you still like me? It's the thirstiest little letter possible.
It's the thirstiest little letter, and also if I were Eliza, I'd be like, okay, that's too much. Yeah.
2 languages and a pet name.
Yeah.
Kind of have the ick now.
Yeah, like, okay, you could have played hard to get, at least.
It feels like the physical embodiment of the third text in a row 2 days later.
Yeah.
Like, you
Do you
good?
still like
You
me?
alive?
Yep.
Wolftone leaves, I think, around the year 1785. Around that time, Elizabeth Vesey gives birth to a daughter. Some have suggested that daughter
it's not.
is Wolftone's love child.
Cute.
But that child will not survive to adolescence.
That's rough.
And nothing really kind of becomes of that moment other than oh my God, look at all these wildly important people Richard Martin is connected to.
Yeah.
He's a big deal in Ireland.
Yeah.
So, 1785, this is like a rough kind of period in Martin's life.
Okay.
So he's elected to Parliament in 1776.
Okay.
In 1783, he leaves Parliament.
Okay.
Also in the midst of his wife's affair. We don't really know how much, if at all, he knew about it.
Yeah.
We also don't know how much, if at all, it's happening in person and not just both like they're kind of longing for each other.
Writing letters to each other.
Right.
Yeah.
They have 9 children. 3 will survive childhood. Of those 3 who survive childhood, only 2 live to see their 20s. Okay. And so there's like a lot of childbirth. There's a lot of child passing, which is awful at the same time. He's just left Parliament. And then in 1785, Martin made a careless mistake. He says something kind of mean about his cousin James Jordan. Jordan calls for a duel immediately against Hair Trigger Dick. And Martin is like, I'm so sorry. That was like super reckless of me. I should not have said that. I apologize.
Yeah.
And Jordan is like, I don't care.
Yeah.
You said what you said.
Yeah.
Duel.
Now I must defend my honor.
Right. And Martin's like, I didn't want to kill you. I didn't want to do that. But they don't call me Hair Trigger Dick for nothing.
I may be older, but I still got it.
Correct. So he does kill his cousin James Jordan.
Can't fault him.
he does regret that one for the rest of his life. It's not the last duel he'll be a part of.
Of course not.
But it does seem to be the one that he is most like he regrets in the end. Right.
Shouldn't have done that.
And so that's 1785. And so that whole period of his life is, I'm back to my notes now, is just so weird for him. One of the reasons that he and his wife are such big fans of, have I said that already? Yeah, this is just a recap of what I've told you all already. Just that, like, he joins Parliament at the age of 22 and leaves it before his 30th birthday.
That is insane.
Having been a politician, having traveled to America, lots of kids, like Galway house opening up. He's not 30.
Wild.
Yeah, there's all this stuff going on.
A lot of life.
And then 1785 rolls around and like he kills his cousin and he's like clearly kind of like just trying to kick it out in Galway.
Yeah.
Like the interesting thing is, and then this man's life just kind of pauses for a couple of years. So at 29, he leaves Parliament. At 31 is when he has his duel with his cousin. And then for the next 6 years, we literally don't hear anything from him. Okay? So he's like maybe managing his estate or like raising his children. His two children that will survive are born around this time. I mean, a lot of children are born around this time, but his children, Mary and Thomas, are born around this time and they will. So maybe he's dedicating himself to that for a little bit. Yeah. But for a man who had such a busy first 30 years of his life, his like mid 30s, he just completely disappears.
Please don't do that to me.
I haven't. I'm actively here.
Yeah,
I mean, I did do that a week ago. You could not get a hold of me.
Literally.
But you knew I was planning on coming back.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's one day I might not. I want you to know that.
I know. That's
if I didn't love my job so much,
true.
Like, and not even like I could never leave my kids, right? Like I just like legitimately love being a teacher. Here's the thing, babes. I
thought about leaving you last week.
No. Oh, wow. What a transition. I'm hearing it. Like, for the last 2-3 days, I've just been kind of like, like early, the first half of summer was always going to be marked with all these big trips, which I was super excited about. And I'm grateful that I got a chance to go on. And I know I'm lucky to get a chance to go on all of them. But you know how a trip can kind of serve as a distraction? You're like kind of always getting ready. Mm-hmm. And now I'm in this part of summer, which is nice and restorative, but I need to kind of, I think, down gear shift. I don't know what. When school starts up in August, I'm always ready for it because it gives like suddenly a lot of structure back to my life. Yeah. It's been wonderful sleeping in. I realize it sounds like I'm complaining about sleeping in. But like
it messes with your lifestyle for sure.
That's it. Because part of me is like, do I run away again? Like I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
But you also like lose motivation for throughout the day.
Yes.
And then you like don't get anything done. Right. And then like your entire day you're like, what am I?
Yes. Yeah. I have way more time now than I did even 3 months ago, and I feel less productive in anything that I'm trying to work on. Thank you.
I do the same thing.
It's why the next 2 days I am going to hike because I have not been able to get myself to hike before I have other stuff to do. And I'm thinking of like, if that's just the only thing I have to do, I can kind of like go with the breeze a little bit more. But yeah. So whenever summer ends, everyone's like, "Oh man, are you sad about it?" I'm like, "No, not really. It's been really
a lot of
nice.
Time off. Yeah,
it's been really nice. But I like this job.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna leave you.
Yeah.
But I want you to just remember that was the last thing I said because the next thing we hear about Richard Martin
leaves. His wife.
So in 1791, his wife runs away to Paris with another man.
Not even the original. Not even
different man. Like a Mr. Peter, I think is what it got written in the news.
Props.
So Richard Martin travels to Paris, charges his wife's lover with criminal conversation because conversation in the 1790s was a euphemism for sex. They were conversing.
That's so funny.
And now this is where I need to point out something in the historical record that is hard for me to find out.
Okay.
So 1791, he travels to Paris where Elizabeth Vesey is having criminal conversations with another man.
Yeah.
And he takes that man to court and the jury agrees with Richard Martin.
Okay.
Either the jury awards Richard Martin a divorce in 1791.
Okay.
Or Elizabeth just dies that year in London. I wasn't sure if it was a divorce 1791 or death 1791.
One way or another, she's no longer legally his wife.
Correct.
Yeah.
They also award Richard Martin, who owns like the entire Galway area, £10,000, which in today's money is roughly $350,000. And this is kind of such a cool and gangster thing about Richard Martin. He travels back from Paris to London. Oh, also 1791 is a hugely important year in the French Revolution too.
And they were just like in Paris.
So he's now seeing
and Jumbo's like, get me out.
Yes, exactly. No, for real. I mean, that's a couple years later, but yes, exactly. Like, this man has now seen the birth of 2 different revolutions while on vacation. So he travels.
We need to figure out how to do that. I don't know. I think
I don't want to travel to Russia.
We need to go to another planet. I don't know.
So Richard Martin takes the settlement, goes to London, collects his payment, and then basically kind of takes a carriage from London back to Galway. So it's like carriage to boat, boat to Ireland, and then once in Ireland, carriage again. And just takes
crazy that you had to travel like that.
No, that's not the crazy part of the story.
God.
He has just a bag of £10,000 worth of coins in his carriage, and he just throws the money out the window.
Give it to me. Give it to me. What are you doing?
The sources said he, quote, distribute it to the poor by throwing it out his window. It's his, like, bloody divorce money. And he's just literally, like, imagine waiting to cross the road and a man hits you in the face with a coin.
With a pence. Exactly. Or some shit.
Exactly.
What?
So again, it's like Richard Martin has this reputation of being like kind of a good guy, like kind of like definitely a weird guy, but
for
like
sure a weird guy,
kind of a good guy, like great at impersonations. Didn't want to kill his cousin. Will give away money. Loves the theater, but like in a really heterosexual like after party frat bro kind of way.
Yeah,
right, exactly. And so 1791, that wraps up that whole thing. 2 years later, 1793, Richard Martin remarries. This time he marries Harriet Evans Martin, and they have 4 children who will live to adulthood.
Wow.
One becomes a preacher, another one becomes another important Irish writer. And here's now where I'm going to add my own little analysis.
Okay.
I think it's clear that several of his children were clearly talented, but that they also benefited from having a father who was a lot of fun and super well connected and had so much money he could throw it out the window. Like, it does feel a little bit like they were also Nepo babies.
Like Kim K, like...
yes, like every celebrity in Hollywood.
Singing,
yes.
What was it?
Oh,
I just can't wait to be king.
Yes. It's just... Because
they were more talented.
Every time I would click on them, it'd be like, and this daughter was an important author, which is a huge accomplishment, especially for women in literature at the time.
But you also have to remember that she didn't have to do any of the other.
And then you would click on the link, and she published like 3 books, you know? And you're like,
especially in that time, Houdini and Arthur Conan Doyle are like arguing via book.
I just got eventually kind of major Nepo baby vibes. I'm thrilled that they found commercial success.
Some of my favorite actors and singers are Nepo babies.
I'm a ride or die for Mary Shelley. I don't want us to lump them all into the same category.
I will make fun of you a little, you know?
By 1798, Richard Martin is back in the game. And this is now kind of 15 years since he last left Parliament. So he left Parliament at age 29. He's coming back into it in his like early, approaching mid 40s, right?
Wow.
He's raised a couple kids, gotten remarried. He's now ready to go again. In 1798, Martin is back in the game. This time, he will basically stay in the game for the rest of his life. England has just passed the Act of Union, which essentially meant there was an Irish Parliament, and I think potentially a Scottish Parliament, and an English Parliament.
And so
the
they're all
Act
coming
of
together.
Union, correct, changes it from Great Britain to the United Kingdom. So anyone elected out of Ireland won't be in Dublin.
Yes.
They'll be in London. And this is the part where I tell you guys, yes, our non-American listeners, I'm aware that the House of Parliament in the United Kingdom is technically in Westminster. Dumb Americans. It's in London. It's right next to Big Ben. It actually is Big Ben.
It's actually in the clock face.
Exactly. They just gotta keep
actually,
track of
you
time.
just like go across the bridge and then down directly into the Thames.
It was actually just wild though. We came up from the tube, aka the subway, and we're like, oh, it's right there.
It really was.
We had a great time though, and it was raining, ruined that pair of shoes. Oh, remember that World War II veterans get together we accidentally stumbled into in that bar?
I was like, I don't want to drink this IPA anymore.
And I was like, oh, I don't, because there's not any airflow. We are one room removed from the door, and all of the air is just standstill.
But I did want to listen to all those conversations bad.
I'm just used to my American HVAC and Americans yelling.
It's not as comfortable eavesdropping when you're sweating.
So he gets reelected. He gets elected. And now, instead of just going to Dublin, he is now kind of living in London, serving in Westminster as a member of Parliament representing Ireland, specifically the Galway area.
Okay.
He gets into the game around 1798, 1800. He'll be in the game for the rest of his life. And this time, Martin's actually really good. He was apparently so good at making friends and just being funny that he was this huge success in London.
Hell yeah.
More socially at first. And when I say at first, I mean for the first 20 years, Martin was mainly socially good. Everyone loved him. He became friends with a bunch of people.
Wait, sorry. So he's back in Parliament.
Right.
Okay.
And now Parliament
UK.
isn't in Dublin.
Okay.
He's in
Okay.
London and Westminster.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. He was a good time, but none of the papers took him seriously. Later, when he would try to become a serious politician, that would not help him out.
Oh, no.
He spends 20 years just kind of kicking it in London, raising his kids, going to parties, having a good time.
Mm-hmm.
He gets on a first name basis with so many important people at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Here are 4 of them. He's on a first name basis with Henry Grattan, who's an advocate for Irish freedom.
Cool.
He is friends with William Pitt the Younger, the youngest Prime Minister of Great Britain, and the first Prime Minister of the United Kingdom.
Oh, okay.
He becomes friends with Daniel O'Connell, Irishman known as the Liberator, who helped secure Irish Catholic emancipation in 1829. He's on a first-name basis with Queen Caroline, Queen of the United Kingdom, and King George the Fourth, who takes the throne in 1820.
Goddamn.
King George III, his dad, is the one that
Yes.
loses the Revolutionary War to George Washington. This is King George IV.
Okay. In Irish liberation?
Irish Catholic emancipation.
No, the one before that. It was someone
The
that
Liberator.
was... No, it was the one before that. 2 before that. The first one you mentioned, who
Yes.
was trying for Irish...
So we have Henry Grattan, advocate for Irish freedoms.
Okay, what does that mean in this context? 'Cause
Right.
It just became the UK.
Right. So I think a lot of it was these politicians trying to grant Ireland as much freedom as it could through the legislative process.
Okay.
So a lot of Irish politicians are not a fan of the Act of Union because it forces them to go to Westminster. But also at the same time, the Irish Parliament in Dublin didn't actually really carry that much power.
Okay.
And so it's not even a united question in Ireland as to whether or not the Act of Union was good or not. And then the person who fights for Daniel O'Connell, who fights
Irish
for
Catholic liberation.
Irish Catholic emancipation.
Okay.
What that meant...
It's against the Protestant.
Yeah, so basically, in order to be involved in any part of the civil society, you had to not be a Catholic, you had to be a Protestant.
Okay.
And emancipation for Irish Catholics around this time meant removing those barriers to civil participation.
Okay.
So you could be an elected official who is also Catholic in Ireland during this time. That's what
Okay.
emancipation looked like.
Okay.
Because a lot of these Irish MPs are born to Catholic families who are then raised as socially presented Protestants to allow themselves access to this kind of stuff.
Okay, so they're allowed to be who they
Right.
are,
But
believe what they want.
This is also still super interesting. He's such a good time that his group of friends involve people actively seeking Irish independence and the monarchy in enslaving or occupying or otherwise lots of word choices there, the Irish people.
Yes.
That he's friend to kind of both because he's just that
is
funny.
the devil's advocate.
Well, so in 1891 he gets in a shipwreck.
Oh,
The ship is first delayed. He's trying to sail from London back to Ireland. The
Okay.
ship is first delayed for a couple of unknown reasons. Unknown to the passengers, it's then discovered that the captain and the majority of the crew is swashbuckling drunk.
Oh my God.
Eventually, this is now a quote, 3 sailors are sober enough to sail. So they set sail for Ireland with 3 working sailors. They hit a rock. The captain's like, just keep going. They hit a second rock, and everyone's like, we should raise the distress signal.
Yeah.
And the captain's too drunk to do it. Eventually, the passengers kind of do it themselves. And again, this is like before, like, the like beep 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 beep, like, right.
Yeah.
It's like kind of just a flag being like, we're sinking. A boat comes and gets people off. Not everybody. Several people do drown in the shipwreck.
They only get the commoner or the gentleman commoners, not the commoners.
Girl, yes. A lifeboat arrives. It can't take everyone. It does rescue Richard Martin, but the first thing London hears is that the ship went down, and then they find out about who the survivors were. And so for a while, people think Richard Martin's dead, and then they're like, oh, no, he's not.
He's alive.
We found him in Ireland, and everyone's like, oh, okay, including his good friend, King George IV, who's like, I'm so glad he isn't dead. My good friend, the Irishman from Galway, is still alive. So after surviving this shipwreck, which again is in 1821, so if we're doing the math, he's 21 in 76, he gets reelected in 98. He's like kind of in his 50s, 60s.
Yeah,
he's like an old guy.
Yeah, especially
now.
at this time.
To have survived a shipwreck in the 1800s
Is insane.
And he's like, okay.
And also, essentially 2 revolutions.
Right, oh, right. Like on vacation, casually.
Yeah.
Revolutions, especially the second one, that was famously nice to rich people.
Yeah.
Okay, so he comes back to Parliament in 1821. He, like, buckles down. He uses his influence. Oftentimes people don't take him seriously. But several of the reports are like, they vote for him because they make him laugh. And he passes something called Martin's Act.
You know what we should do?
What?
Join politics.
Listen,
Apparently we can do a lot.
we have casually talked about taking
over Wheatridge.
Exactly. The city council of Wheatridge. We all just kind of keep moving to the west side. And then we all run for different city council seats.
Casey and I won't exactly be in Wheatridge. I'm not going to pinpoint us because it's a very small place, but...
Neither am I. You know, it would require me to leave the city and county of Denver, which is something I will never do. My little gay 12-year-old self will come back from the past in a reverse Back to the Future style and haunt my living life if he finds out I moved to the suburbs. But then he'll find out it was to run for office and he'll get it.
He'll be okay. He'll be fine.
But this is a fun moment to pause. So... you've gotten to know a lot about Richard Martin.
Yeah, I'm wondering...
Wait, what's your honest to God guess as to what Martin's Act has to deal with?
I have no idea.
He bans guns. Could you imagine? Could you imagine?
Grant, that's too soon.
I'm the only one who could duel. I will be the last hair trigger dick there is. I mean, no, because any 18-year-old, but you get what I'm saying. I couldn't have gone this whole episode and not make a joke.
No, it would be, yeah.
So he passes Martin's Act. Its official name was the Ill Treatment of Cattle Bill.
Oh,
and
nice.
was the first piece of legislation to specifically protect animals from cruel treatment. That's right. Richard Martin is a pivotal, foundational leader in the animal rights movement. I know, right? For how weird of a guys. Girl, you actually have no idea how accurate you are there.
Excellent.
I can't even talk about it right now. Yes.
If you don't know what I'm referencing, I'm assuming you're just not in the U.S. I'm not sure if this is like a distinctly U.S. thing. There's an ad. It's the ASPCA or something like that. It's an advocacy group for abused animals. And when we were growing up, they might have changed the song now, but it was Sarah McLachlan, who's like a singer, just like talking to a camera, like,
Hi, I'm Sarah McLaughlin.
And if you have any extra money, and like promoting for donation, and they do a lot of great work, but the song always plays over a montage of like videos and pictures of animals like in cages, like looking not like tear jerk worthy. Essentially, is in the arms of the angel, and it's Sarah McLaughlin's song.
Right. So I have two things. First, I use that commercial to teach pathos, ethos, and logos
I'm
to
pretty
my
sure
students.
that's how I learned it too.
Right, 100%. We're like, it's so heavy on all three of these elements. It's like such an accessible text. And second, Richard Martin founds the ASPCA.
Shut up.
When you were like, oh, it's like, you sang the Sarah McLaughlin song 30 minutes ago. And I was like, shut up. He founds what becomes the RSPCA, the Royal Society for the Protection of Animals or protection from cruel treatment for animals or whatever.
Yeah.
The SPCA becomes the RSPCA in the United Kingdom and then forms
ASPCA.
branches all across the world, one of them being the ASPCA.
Every time, Casey and I live alone with two dogs, right? And we do the really annoying thing that all dog owners do, all sane dog owners do, where you just have a voice for your dog, right? And so we talk to each other through the dog every once in a while.
Super healthy, not weird. We love it.
If you get a dog, or if you have a dog, you know what we mean. But it's like if we're like talking, if I ask Bowser, like, oh, Bowser, are you hungry or something? And Casey's in the room, he's like, actually, yeah, Mom, I'm really hungry. It's just like stuff like that.
Oh my God. I love you, and thus that means I love your pets, much like I love any children my friends have one day.
Especially for people who don't own pets. But the thing that we'll do most often is if we're like trying to like rag on one another, like, yeah, well, I can't believe that Casey didn't take me on a walk yet. I'm actually on the phone with Sarah McLaughlin right now.
So what's so funny is like basically right after I'm on the phone with Sarah McLaughlin right now.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm back.
Yeah.
You son of a bitch. I'm in.
I'm in.
Okay, so Richard Martin and his friends found the SPCA basically right after he passes Martin's Act.
Hell yeah.
They form it at a place called Old Slaughter's Coffee House.
I'm sorry, what?
So Slaughter, deeply ironically, is the guy's last name. It's like, he's like, I'm William Slaughter, and welcome to Old Slaughter's Coffee House. And that's where they formed the SPCA.
Yeah, well, last names used to be jobs, right?
So no, it's like an aristocratic, like, Lord Slaughter. I did. But I did it.
Almost did it.
I've been saying like aristocratic left
Gardner.
and right here.
I was going to say boiler. That doesn't sound right.
Farmer.
Bum, 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 bum. Bum, bum, bum.
Okay.
I'm just full of cultural references today. Grant's full of hitting his pop filter.
Well, I am so glad you have been having a good time.
Thank you.
Because in January 1823...
Is it an animal or a person?
Martin is lost at sea on the ship Alert. A little over a year after he survived that first shipwreck, and less than a year after he passes the Martin Act. As the Duke of Bedford said, quote, I'm glad to see old Dick Martin of Galway dead. He has been a general nuisance in both public
he cares about animals
and private.
And it's fun to be around.
Right.
That's cool.
But he's found. He's funny.
I knew it.
I know. I'm like trying to lower it.
I was
You're like looking
no
at the time.
way.
You're like, Grant has more.
I was like, no.
I'm even over here. I'm like, no, he's dead.
Yeah.
No, he's not. The ship, which ironically is labeled Alert, does like run aground in the north of England, and again everyone's like, the ship was lost, I guess they're all dead, and then like
and he just appears. That's
correct
really
but
funny.
Now here is where, having survived another shipwreck and again beaten the dead rumors,
how many times is he marked as legally dead
twice
on some papers?
Well, at least twice from shipwrecks.
That's really
I have
funny.
no references for the revolutions he saw or the hundreds of duels he fought in.
Yep.
After surviving his second shipwreck, also after passing Martin's Act, King George IV says, oh good,
my friend's still alive.
Right, well, my friend, Humanity Dick, is still alive.
Where's his publicist?
Almost-
Where is his publicist?
Almost 90% of the articles that I found, humanity dick was the key word I had to use.
Oh, that's rough.
Richard Martin is super generic. There's been a lot of Richard Martins, and hair trigger dick, you can't Google that. And so, like I was typing it. I was
typing it, and you were like,
I'm like Richard Martin duels, humanity dick, duels, dueling humanity dick, right? Like 90% of my sources that I ultimately found was because I was using the search phrase for humanity dick, which is a nickname, not hair trigger dick, and not Richard Martin. There's like billions Richard Martins out there,
right?
And that's a nickname, humanity dick, that one will stick, lol, and two, is given to him by the king, which I think is also hilarious. The king is like, that's humanity dick.
Yeah.
And he's called humanity dick because, sure, he's like a good time, but also because his love of animals is seen as almost as kind of like a silly quirk.
Thing,
right? He's like, oh, you know, bleeding heart liberal humanity dick over there doesn't want us to like beat animals to death, things like that.
The king finds that hilarious.
So it is after surviving that shipwreck that him and all of his friends meet at the ASPCA, or the SPCA, form the RSPCA at Old Slaughter's Coffee House. Nice. Humanity Dick in his lifetime is like, people have said I formed this organization. It was actually my friend so-and-so who formed the organization. But that friend who formed the organization will spend all of its money, overdraft the account, end up in debtor's prison, and Humanity Dick has to raise money to get him out of prison and pay off the debts. Aww. So even if he didn't, quote, found it, he was there when it was founded and rescued it and the president at least once. And also existed in large part because he got his bill passed.
Yeah,
and then I have that little note there that you just jumped straight to. I use the ASPCA Sarah McLachlan commercials to teach ethos, pathos, and logos to my students. Okay.
I'm so glad I thought of that.
I'm so excited for this next section.
Okay. Should we refresh drinks?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. This is going well.
Good.
Okay, so let's jump back into it. All right. The start of a new section 2.
Whoa, hold on.
Whoa. Sorry.
Someone named a cat up for adoption, and this might not hit with you because you don't follow true crime.
Someone named a cat up for adoption?
No, a cat is up for adoption.
Okay.
They named it Casey Anthony. Okay, so you do know.
Yes.
Domestic short hair.
You mean the innocent Casey Anthony?
There was a docuseries about her, and it was quite compelling. I don't know if I believe it. This is the description. Okay, it says, meet Casey Anthony. Okay, hear me out. Casey Anthony is a healthy, happy 1.5-year-old girl. Yes, she is named Casey Anthony, so I'm sure we have some valid questions. The truth is that she had a litter of 4 kittens when she came into our rescue and seemed like a very fit and an attentive mom until she was not. One day we entered our holding space to find one of...
I don't want to know the rest, I don't think.
Her kittens without a head.
Oh my God.
And she observed our shock and horror. She resumed gnawing on her deceased baby's neck. I'm aware that probably does not make her very adoptable.
Some animals will do that under stress, though.
Yeah, but honestly, shit happens. Casey finished raising her other babies with no incident, has been completely fine since getting spayed.
They left the other 3 in there?
Apparently. Needs mom's milk, I guess. Anyway, that's my Twitter.
I was going to make a reference to something. No, I can't. Oh, this is where we can cut in, actually, real quick, because I don't think we want to cut in there. Where are we clocking at? Okay, sweet. Someone messaged the Instagram the other day about where you go for true crime stuff, because they really loved how you did Lacey Peterson's case.
Oh, that's
she was like,
great.
I felt like you came at it with like a desire to present all sides of the case without like a specific or
that's
like
so
overbearing.
Kind.
Right. Like, so she wanted more stuff like that. And I was like, hi, this is Grant. I don't know. And I think my mom's working right now. But I was basically like,
my mom's home.
Exactly.
She just is.
She's in the shower.
Yeah.
That I was like, I think she just watches, honestly, a lot of stuff and has developed a pretty good nose for like bias or where it might be leading or like just kind of like consumes all and has gotten like a good read of it. And also, and that's why we drink.
Yes.
I listen.
I didn't actually listen to And That's Why We Drink and That's Why We Drink for Lacey Peterson. I know they have covered it, but they covevered it several years ago, so it would have been before any of the
newer stuff came out.
Yeah, so I seem to remember they were, because it doesn't look good if you just look at it from like the surface level. And I'm pretty sure there was a lot of really funny jokes about how he handled his mistress.
It's just their style. That's their vibe.
Oh yeah, they're like a comedy podcast. Anyway.
Someone thought you did a good job, but also true crime. This is a great moment to jump in actually for the section I'm about to talk to you next. Okay.
Excellent.
So, Richard Martin.
Yes.
Hair trigger dick. Humanity dick. Friend of the people and animals. Threw coins out of a window.
Because he simply didn't need them.
Exactly. He now has a law in hand.
Yes.
Here's where we jump back into my notes. There had been laws protecting animals in general for a while.
Okay.
For instance, the Irish Parliament had attempted to ban animal fighting, like literally maybe a century earlier, because they viewed it as a vice and thus a sin. But for the most part, there aren't actually any animals. Like some of the animal protection laws before Martin's Act is like, well, no dog fighting on Sundays.
Yeah. Well, it's like they're outlawing it more because they think it's against their religious beliefs, not because they actually
and it's against their religious beliefs, not because it's cruelty to animals, but because there's like drinking and gambling involved, and that's the thing that they don't like. That makes sense. That sucks. I'm not going to get into a lot of details, but there are like bear fighting cages in London until like 50, 60 years before this, under King James the First and Sixth.
Are they run by fighting fits? Is that where he went?
No, actually. It's just a really wild time.
Okay.
And for those of us who are listening and who are animal lovers, there is going to be a trial around animal abuse. I'm not going to share graphic details, and when I do describe any details of the case, you'll have a warning. So if you're anxious, like there'll be a warning involved. Okay, it's not.
I can handle true crime so
I
easily.
know.
As soon as it comes to animals, I like lose it.
So Martin's law was different and new. It put forth both descriptions as to what animal abuse looked like and penalties for it. The bill set out to prohibit anyone from, quote, wantonly beating, abusing, or ill-treating farm animals, such as horses, cows, sheep, and donkeys. Building on an argument first put forth by Jeremy Bentham a few years earlier, he noted that since animals could feel pain, they had a right not to be harmed. Sorry, I completely lost it. I'm quite right. Jeremy Bentham was met with ridicule for this, but the idea did grow over time, and then Martin gets that idea passed into law largely because of his charm. One of the things he does is he tells a story about a monkey and a dog who are forced to fight each other, but he tells it in such a way that other members of parliament, other MPs, like laugh during the story because they still think he's like telling a joke, and then vote for his bill.
Okay, so they support it.
They support him.
But not because they know what the bill is.
Right. And also, like, Richard Martin also goes out onto the streets to be like, people of London, treat your animals better. And that is not received generally well by the people of London. Some of them are, for sure. And there is definitely a growing movement around treating animals well during this time. Percy Shelley, for example, in like, I think either 1813 or 1815, published a book, and it was like on eating a natural diet, which was basically Percy Shelley was like, be a vegetarian, right? Don't eat animals anymore, stuff like that.
Enough.
So there is this movement around this. So he's not like alone. I mean, 24 people helped form the ASPCA, and a lot of these were like educated men. It's an outside political view, but it's gaining traction.
Okay.
So soon after the passage of his bill, Martin sought to prove that it would be enforced. He also felt like he needed to educate the judges at the time that this was now a law that existed, and here's what it needed to look like.
Okay.
And Martin's a lawyer, so he can actually try
do
it
that.
himself.
Okay, yeah.
So he immediately sued a cart salesman by the name of Bill Burns for abusing his donkey. During the trial,
Hell yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
During the trial, we have this description, okay, of the trial itself.
Okay.
There were gasps as the victim was led into the court. Some laughed. Clerks whispered excitedly. The defendant, Bill Burns, was appalled. Putting his thumb to his nose, he blew a loud raspberry,
Yeah.
like snotted out.
Gross.
But of the victim's injuries, there was no doubt. Plus 15 now, if you don't want to hear anything at all. As a contemporary painting would later show, ribs could be seen through the flesh. Blood matted the hair. Long wounds covered the back. Only the prosecuting lawyer, Richard Martin, remained impassive, holding in his hands the reins of Bill Burns' donkey.
Yeah.
He knew that Burns' cruelty had been proved and that history for animal rights was changed forever. As one song written immediately after this case put it, Martin's ass got a verdict.
Yeah!
And please enjoy this painting.
Oh.
So there's Richard Martin.
The goodest donkey.
There's the donkey.
Poor guy.
There's Bill Burns literally
Snotting,
blowing his
yeah.
nose. And there's everyone being like, oh my God, there's a donkey in the
courtroom.
I mean, couldn't
And
have...
he doesn't look good.
No, it also couldn't have made it dirtier, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a huge moment. It's like, this is, of all of the things around Humanity Dick, this is the thing he's known for the most. It's like...
He's walking this donkey into court.
He passes this law, and he brings this donkey into court. And according to one source, that didn't actually happen. I know. It's not the majority of voices, but I do want to put out there right now.
Source that says
one source was like, actually, it was just like a bunch of photos, and it became kind of a tale afterwards that Humanity Dick, this like guy who's been made fun of in the press for years for other stuff, for being like a funny guy, brought a donkey into court. That his ass got a verdict, right? Things like that.
I can see that like as a political cartoon.
Correct. And so just want to point that out there too. But this moment specifically is kind of what Humanity Dick then becomes known for.
Hell yeah. I love him.
So then I have a couple of quotes from one of Humanity Dick's biographers, like modern day biographers. Martin's biographer says that Richard Martin even took it upon himself to implement the new legislation. Quote, for 2 years, he careered around the streets of London, arresting people for his new law. Then he'd pop up in court to prosecute them, to teach the magistrate, the judges, about the new law. And he had no sense of danger because he was a world-class duelist. He was like,
He was like, what are you going to do? Duel me?
I'm sorry. You might have heard me from my other name, Hair Trigger Dick.
He could have such a badass monologue of like explaining his like Humanity Dick nickname.
Enchanté.
Yeah.
The name's Dick. Hair Trigger Dick.
No. As I've said, and I will say again, I hated those words in that order.
I hear you, and I'm also letting you know I'm deeply grateful for the algorithm that I have built brick by brick that 3 months ago introduced this man to me in just a quirky little snapshot. And I was like, I should save that for when I need to do a case sometime.
Hell yeah.
And the quirky little snapshot was like, meet Richard Martin, over 100 duels, saw the American Revolution, survived 2 shipwrecks, passes instrumental animal rights law, and then like 2-3 other bullet points that we're going to get to here in a second.
Brings donkey into courtroom. Here's a weird one that a listener sent me that I don't know if it could become a story. Probably not. I did put it in my notes, but I kind of doubt it'll be a whole story. What's Abraham Lincoln's wife?
Mary Todd Lincoln.
Mary Todd Lincoln.
Oh, Mary.
Learned French from snippets Victor Hugo would send her of the drafts of Les Mis.
Could see.
Insane.
Yeah.
Wild.
There's only 8 famous people at any given time, and we have fully covered that universe.
I think all of them.
Casey's criticism is right that a lot of our stuff has been Eurocentric based. I think that's in large part because that's where like our media originates from, and there's a bunch of really interesting stories out there.
We'll figure it out.
But we're still chasing them. We're still in the double digits of episodes. So, we're in a new section now. There's no more animal cruelty stuff. Honestly, there's like no more sad stuff. There's one more sad thing, but nothing graphic. So listeners can sit back, relax, enjoy the rest of their commute with a little bit
That wasn't even that graphic compared to the other one.
Right.
I'm not even going to say it again.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what is really interesting is that Richard Martin continues to get elected out of Galway in Western Ireland. His reputation as a politician for a long time had been a pretty unserious one, right? For 20 years, he's in the press as just this like fat, short. One newspaper said every part of him is round, which I really identify with. But like that was for 20 years. He's just like in London, not really paying attention to Galway, just like kind of kicking around.
Oh.
And then also, it's not like animal rights was the issue that Galway voters cared about.
Right.
So why do they keep sending him
back?
Well, like every good man, he failed up. He was the best/worst landlord out there.
Okay.
So because he was in charge of this really big estate, there's a lot of people that live on his land.
So they just wanted him out.
Correct.
That's hysterical.
They kind of wanted him out. We're about to get into another kind of historical controversy here. So he's this huge landowner in Galway.
Yeah.
Which means there's a lot of tenant farmers who have to pay him rent and then like farm the land.
Yeah.
So he was apparently pretty famous for just like kind of forgetting to raise the rent, or maybe even at times charging the rent. And it wasn't uncommon at this time that if like the farmer died, the male farmer died, his wife would then be given a pension so that way she could like leave the farm and they could rent it out to a different family.
Right.
And he was apparently famous for giving out like huge pensions and stuff like that.
How much does a banana cost these days?
$10? Yeah. No,
Yeah.
exactly. That basically his estate made no money, gave a lot of that money away, didn't really...
A vibe.
Yeah.
Honestly, this is how wealthy people should be, I think, or as some wealthy people, billionaires, Elon Musk. That's incredible.
Yes. Sorry, I was catching up on my notes. He was like, in many ways, he forgot to charge rent, provided generous pensions to widows, and was otherwise absent in a way that much of his tenants seemed to very thoroughly enjoy.
Yeah, honestly, same.
So, his tenants returned the favor. According to Shite History podcast, his tenants, quote, this is now from one of my sources, would come from miles around, beat up voters of opposing candidates, and fully set up roadblocks. Oftentimes, in between, they would vote multiple times in disguise.
So this is the actual voter fraud, and also how we're gonna get Lydia onto the city council.
100%. Why do you think I own 9 wigs?
Literally Dwight Schrute.
There's this meme, and it's just this little girl in like 4 different wigs styling.
Yeah.
And it was me signing up for another free month with a different email.
I'm pretty sure that might have been Dwight Schrute.
I think so.
There is a scene with him in all the different wigs.
Yeah, let's actually get back to Dwight Schrute for a second.
Please.
Okay, so Richard Martin loves to shoot people.
Yep.
Owns a farm.
Yep.
Doesn't seem to be particularly good at running it. Loves animals.
Yeah.
Kind of weird.
There is so many. It's just all the same. Except I don't know how much Dwight Schrute loves animals. He does own a lot of them. He does own the building that the office is.
Doesn't he freeze Angela's cat?
Yeah, he does.
That's okay.
Because it's a really old cat.
So,
it's so funny.
The deal Richard Martin makes with his tenants is essentially, I'll be gone basically forever.
Yeah.
I just need you to break several election laws once every couple years to see me get reelected.
That's a phenomenal deal for like essentially free rent or like cheap rent.
Yes. Now, I will say this. A different historical source said that Richard Martin was, quote, a very hard landlord. So there is differing accounts. What seems pretty well established is that by the time Richard Martin does die and his estate passes to his son, his general estate is just in complete disorder and is not making any money.
Well, that's because he didn't manage it well.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that's not...
But so that leads me to believe more of the first source than the second source, that like you can't have a disaster. I mean, I guess you can. Like plenty of men are bad at running companies. Elon Musk. But it was like I don't think he was around enough to be a hard like landlord.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm putting it out there for the historical record. Well, whichever account you believe.
That was the finance bro that wrote that. They're like, he was a bad landlord.
There's a lot of it was actually kind of fun researching this. I did go down some very deep rabbit holes. You'll see my link tree is much longer than usual, and that's fine. Whichever of those two accounts you believe, though, it all comes crashing down around him during the 1826 election, only 4 years after passing Martin's Law, and only 3 years after surviving the second shipwreck. Martin loses his seat after he is accused, rightfully so, of voter intimidation. He's basically on record saying, of course I cheated in Galway. Yeah. You gotta cheat in Galway.
Duh.
Everyone's cheating in Galway. That's how you get elected in Galway. Yeah. Anyways,
I just need you to find me 30,000 more votes in Galway.
I'll wire you over a bunch more wigs. You just let me know how many you need.
And what colors.
Exactly.
Like
we'll get it.
Blonde or brown.
And they better not be horsehair.
Yeah. All synthetic or human.
Exactly. Well, while that's very funny,
yes,
it also means that he loses the protection of being a member of parliament. And I don't mean like he has a bodyguard escort. I mean, being a member of parliament means he's not allowed, at this time at least, to be arrested for certain crimes.
Oh, like some other people.
Right. Like, for instance, gambling debts.
Oh.
You're not allowed to throw a person in debtor's prison if they're a member of parliament. But so basically he gets accused and or charged of voter fraud. And that means his immunity falls immediately. And everyone who wants to arrest him for all his gambling debts live in London, where he's serving. So he immediately leaves the country. Like, he's like, oh, but I'm out, folks. Like, he's like the cartoon.
Packs up his little, like, snake oil. And he's like...
Yes. He's like, I'll send for you later, honey. Yeah. Give my regards to the pack animals.
Goodbye, Harriet.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And he is out of there.
Yeah.
He moves immediately to the north of France. I'm actually going to read this part first. See, the trouble doesn't necessarily stop there. Martin was a heavily gambler at that point. Being a member of parliament, I said that part already. He flees very quickly across the English Channel to Boulogne, Boulogne.
I want to say Bologna, but that's
Bologna,
not it.
France. Yeah. Where he can't be arrested for owing so many people so much money. Or that whole
power to the people
voter intimidation thing either.
Yeah.
So he moves there in 1826, and he will spend the last 8 years of his life in northern France. He died in France peacefully in his sleep, I think, in the presence of his second wife and their 3 daughters on January 6th.
Was it
1834?
Is it still Harriet?
Yeah, he only had his... So the first wife, Elizabeth.
And then it was just Harriet.
Yeah. And so that's the life. And there's one other little detail, and that's like, was Richard Martin a bad guy?
Nah.
This isn't a section that gets covered a lot. And I want to say this right now. I think especially recently in the last 20 years, you have seen people who document American history try to be really intentional about documenting the bad things founding fathers did as well. Thomas Jefferson enslaved the children he produced through sexual assault.
Critical race theory.
Right.
And like all that.
George Washington intentionally cycled enslaved people through the White House so that way he wouldn't have to release them because they were in Pennsylvania. That like these people are bad in some areas, and then also did things that were
did good things.
Right, historically important in other ways. So
you can acknowledge both.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think American history has really gotten to the acknowledge both aspect, or is working on it at least. It's like present.
We're really bad at doing that in present day, though.
100% as well.
Yeah.
But I don't know what, if, or where that kind of conversation exists in other places. For obvious reasons, Richard Martin is revered in Ireland. And his work around animal rights and the animal rights movement is like noteworthy, and there doesn't seem to be a blemish on it.
Right.
But I don't know if some of these other things just aren't talked about because there's not a lot of historical evidence to support them, or because they don't want to talk about them. So I have two things I want to say.
Oh, God, I'm worried.
Yeah. So in the Londonderry Journal from the 13th of June, 1786, it was reported that Martin's, this is now a direct quote, black slave boy was reputedly the son of a West African king and was permitted to resign from Martin's service after his father had died so he could be recalled back to West Africa and reclaim like his throne, like become the leader of this community.
He what?
Right.
Why?
That was hidden behind a 100-page JSTOR article that I was having a hard time sifting through. But they quote a primary source document. But I also don't know if it was enslavement in the way we understand it in like the American South,
right?
Or if it was enslavement in the way it was like
of like you pay your way out, like more of the
this is like a mentor. It's like an errand boy, but I'm not necessarily like
what's the other thing called where you're
indentured servant? Yeah, I don't know if it was like an element of like that.
Yeah,
they don't talk a lot about him being like an enslaver.
If he was
right,
and like that, a prince or something,
right? Or just like that might have been the term they used at the time for like an important leader in the community.
Yeah,
or
we don't have the same.
It could be a completely made up story to show that Richard Martin was like magnanimous and like a good guy, right? Like this could be a fake story. It could be a real story, but he is historically connected to enslaving a young kid.
It's a common archetype too, I feel like, with people that want to discredit people that advocate for animals in saying that they, because they care so much for animals, are like psychopathic or sociopathic in the way that they then treat humans. You know, it's not like a common archetype by any means, but it is like an archetype that I have seen a number of times. Like, oh, this man is so benevolent towards all the animals. He sees himself in the animals and doesn't see himself in the other humans.
I did an episode of Environmental Terrorists like 4 episodes ago.
I mean,
I definitely saw that archetype
trees,
come through. They were like, I'm fine burning a person alive if it saves a tree.
Yeah.
Which...
Yeah, so
not going to land on that political spectrum, but just noting that.
I can like see that being like something that someone comes up with, but it also does seem weird that like the son of an important political figure is then not only enslaved, that feels like it could very well be a possibility.
Right.
It's weird that he was then released to go reclaim his own right.
I want to point out, so a couple things. Some of my research involved research on the Galway estate and like Martin's estate in that area, and it didn't seem like there was a heavy presence of enslaved people of African descent. Doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but that wasn't what was recorded in the histories that I saw. And I did do some initial research around this thread and did not find more. This comes from a section on Wikipedia that was then sourced to a JSTOR article that exists, but that's all I was able to find. So that's the first thing. The second thing is a bit more complicated. And how much fault he is at, I mean, that's really up to interpretation. So the Irish potato famine starts kind of pretty soon after Martin's death. And Martin's estate wasn't necessarily being run super well anyways, but his son Thomas Martin can't take it over until he dies in 1834. Thomas does take it over and almost immediately builds a workhouse on the estate. In theory, the workhouse was to help provide jobs for people who couldn't make money anymore as farmers because of the potato famine. According to one source, 150,000 people died on their estate land during this period from starvation and fever, like at the workhouse. A huge number, but from what I can tell, not historically unrepresentative of what was happening elsewhere.
Yeah, I was going to say it's the potato famine.
There's also a smidge amount of like, some of these deaths might have been undocumented emigration away or other things, but they think roughly around 150,000 people.
That's an insane number.
How
long was the potato famine too? Like,
I actually couldn't necessarily give you that number, but that like, I mean, it's a huge number. Whether or not that workhouse So the workhouse existed. That's proven. People died. That's proven. What's not super clear yet is
like his fault in their deaths.
Correct. Some people say Richard Martin and then his son Thomas Martin were uncaring, bad landlords whose basically like their negligence led to the deaths of 150,000 people in those workhouses. This is not something that gets mentioned a lot in his legacy, because this is another thing I explored.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like...
It's also like, it was such a... Like, I'm not trying to defend either one. Also, if you're watching on YouTube and saw my face do a weird thing, it's because I had a friend named Thomas Martin, and I was just like, what?
I was like, that's how names work. I don't know where that's
No, I was like, who? It's also like, it was such a hard time, probably a very unique situation for their age, and like at that point, if he's trying to help his community by opening a workhouse, he doesn't necessarily have experience operating that thing, and so like, yes, there might have been negligence, but I don't know like how much is that offset by his... Monet, stop. She's really on one tonight.
It's the catnip.
It's the catnip. Yeah, she did just put it in her mouth upstairs. How much is that offset by like his good intentions, right? But like the highway to hell is paved in good intentions, right?
I think so. Like, I think what is really being looked at is not necessarily were those deaths completely preventable and they wouldn't have happened. I mean, I'm sure there's a degree of severity.
Oh yeah.
It's was he negligent or was he active and caring? His father, Richard Martin, has this reputation of caring about poor people. I mean, he literally threw money outside of his wagon to give it to them. Some documented Thomas, his son, as uncaring. Others documented Thomas as having contracted the fever that would kill him after visiting his workhouse to like try to help the women and children. So either he was deeply uncaring, and that's partially why they all died, or so many of them died.
Yeah.
Or he was deeply caring, and that's why he died. Of course, a third mystical option where he was uncaring but still had to visit, got a disease, and died also exists, but that wasn't a narrative
insane.
that
But
I
it
found.
also, it doesn't feel like there's enough evidence here for me to be like, yeah, fuck this guy. He was a really bad guy.
Right.
It's just like he made some mistakes, potentially.
Yeah.
And some of them could have been like bad mistakes, but if anyone in a position of power during this time has a great effect on the like community around them and all like affect other people's lives in negative and positive ways.
The sources that I read that talked about the Martin estate in Galway and documented that history. So not so much the history of Richard Martin, the politician, or his children who then become like authors and stuff, but the stuff that I read that recorded the estate itself.
Right.
Did not blame the Martin family for those deaths.
Okay, yeah.
So that is me just kind of shedding light on the research that I found. I'm not saying I found all the answers and this is me presenting it to you. There might be a source out there, a whole book that I need to read that I just wasn't able to find, right? I'm like fully noting that, but I wanted to like finish rounding out in case you were like, oh, you did Richard Martin and you didn't talk about the 150,000 people that died on his workhouse.
So excited for TikTok to like really come at us.
I know. We have a couple of listeners in Ireland who will sometimes send me to my direct personal Instagram like videos and stuff.
Okay, rude.
Really interested to see if they'd even heard of Richard Martin or what their take is, or if they are taught something locally that I just wasn't able to find. But Ireland throws big celebrations for Richard Martin every year. In fact, there's two different organizations that throw two different celebrations for him.
I love that, though. I like him.
Yes.
I thought he was cool.
I think he is like really cool. I think he's funny. I think he was probably very charming.
Yeah.
I think he was a good time. I think he cared a lot about animals.
Yeah.
I think he lived life big. And I think also the dueling thing might have been that he was just really good at it.
I also think he was young.
Yes.
And we all do.
Found out he was good at it young, and then that reputation maybe carried with him further.
Yeah, that's a reputation that I would absolutely hold on to.
Hair triggered it. Because all of the sources said, be wary around him. He is great with a pistol. But none of the sources I read said, be careful around him. He's quick to anger.
Yeah.
He's an asshole. He's a dick. Right? Like his nickname was Hair Trigger Dick and Humanity Dick, not Dick.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is to kind of wrap at least my part of the story up. One of my favorite things about this podcast is a week ago, I knew only tangentially
Yeah.
a couple things about this man,
Okay.
and I could now recite to you from memory the dates of the 2 different shipwrecks that he survived and how foundational he was to the animal rights movement. Survives the
insane.
first one, passes the law. Survives the second one, founds the ASPCA.
That's
Richard
crazy.
Martin.
I am obsessed with that, actually. So while this is all still fresh in my mind, I had.
Go ahead.
Did you have something?
I thought you were gonna do the minute summary.
Yeah, I was.
I'm gonna set a timer for you.
Oh
See
yeah,
if
I
you can
was.
pull it
I was
off.
going to make you set a timer
Okay.
anyway, but like show it to the camera too, so I can put it in the TikTok.
Is this a good angle?
Yeah. Yeah, hold it right here.
Judges ready?
No. Okay. Hold
I
on.
can give you a 3 down.
No, give me 2.
These are just speech jokes now.
3 people got them in the audience.
I'll give you a fist at 10. How about that? That's a real thing that we say to each other.
Yeah. Well, I've never heard the fist at 10, but I've seen like I'll give you like a signal.
At nationals, it's like, can I get a 3 down, a hook at 30, and then a fist at 10?
A hook at 30?
9:30, 10. And then sometimes if we're in the state of Colorado, I mean, as we oftentimes are, they go, and then can I get a verbal stop at 10:30? Because at 10:31 you're over time, and so they don't want to do that. And I'm
So
like,
at 10:30, it's just like.
they're like, "Oop." Right. And some judges will just go ahead and do that. And I always tell my kids, I'm like, the worst penalty is that if the judge knows, you don't get first. But I'd rather you tell the rest of the story.
And have them judge you for the
Right.
full story. Yeah, fair enough.
Sorry, that was not fair as you were trying to recall
No,
the story.
okay. Okay. What year was he born? 1750?
Like the 50s. I can get an official
in
date
the
in here.
late 1750s.
It's definitely documented. I just didn't write it in my
No,
notes.
that's fair. That's fine. That's fine. I'm not gonna remember any of the years, to be totally fair.
I think it is 1755. If he's 21.
And he dies in
76.
France.
Yeah.
In like the early 1800s.
1834.
1834. Okay. Well, cool. Okay. Fuck. Okay. Why did I start this? Okay.
I don't know. I think you pitched it, and I was like,
I
yeah,
know.
without knowing that you'd be the first one.
I
to
know.
have to do it.
I forgot that I would be the first one to do this. I really thought you would be the first one to do this. Okay. Okay.
Speak slow.
No. I keep wanting to say Martin Short too instead of Richard Short.
Steve Martin was born in 1755.
Okay. Mm-hmm. There's a man named Richard Short. I forgot his name. Richard Martin. And he's in Ireland, right? Okay, and he's born in the like mid 1700s, and he goes to this fancy school because he's a gentleman, and he has a right to like go to college, but he has a tendency to get into duels, and he's actually really good at getting into duels, and so he keeps fighting people, and he keeps winning, and he won like 100 duels, and anyway, he like ends up going into this like pretty famous duel against this guy who like killed a dog, and so he then when he then gets married and goes into parliament, and eventually TLDR he like gets into a shipwreck, lives, and then he passes a law called Martin's Law where he passes a law for protecting animals, right? But he's also a lawyer, and then he goes into a second shipwreck and he survives. They start basically the ASPCA, but before it was the ASPCA, so the SPCA, right? Okay, cool. And then he eventually has to leave because he has debtors. He has debt once he gets out of parliament, and then he dies in France.
So minute 03. Let's
Jesus.
Give her roses.
I needed to do 2 minutes. That was hard.
I've definitely had kids do similar style of activities in my class.
Fun.
And my favorite thing is like the panic eyes. Like there's a certain element that we lost when we became, like as a species, like civilized and living like in established communities, but the panic of being hunted is still there when a person has to speak without notes.
Yeah.
Like,
It's the same fear of like turning off the lights and running up the stairs.
I was the entire time you were speaking, I was listening, but the soundtrack in my own mind was right. Like I was like, get it exactly.
Yeah, that was crazy. It was also
fun.
hard, like in the moment, to think about what I don't need to say. Like, what's not important. I don't know. It came out. That'll be a funny TikTok.
You should be proud of that. I think that's going to work with it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be minute 03. We can just go ahead and treat that as the whole thing.
I assume that it'll just be over a minute. It needs to be over a minute to make money on TikTok, right? So it'll
to count as anything.
To count as anything. But yeah, that was good. I'm proud of that.
That was good. I'll do the speech that way you can record the intro, if that works.
Okay.
Thanks for listening. If you have enjoyed, you can find video clips of us on basically all social media platforms.
Did you hear that? Or was that your stomach?
It was my stomach. So thank you. so much for that. No, I don't feel weird at all now.
I'll tell you this later. There's a reason I'm worried about outside noises.
I'll tell you this later. There's a reason I'm concerned about inside noises. We're Will I Laugh Pod on basically all social media accounts, or Will I Laughed. You can see the full video recordings on YouTube, where we are Will I Laughed Podcast. You can email us listener stories for horsing around to willilaughdpod@gmail.com. Those will get published in 2 episodes.
Hell yeah.
And if you want more content, including more content. You can find us on Patreon, where we are Well I Laughed Podcast. Thanks for listening.
Okay, bye. Love you.
Love you.
See you on Patreon.